Thank you, Sayuti. Assalamualaikum dan salam kedamaian kepada semua yang hadir. I have changed the title from imagining race and religion. Because to me, in Malaysia, we should not be using the term, the concept of race, because our ethnic groups are not organized by blood. That is very American and very Western, and it's very sebenarnya misleading in order to understand we all, because we are not by blood. Malay has a more diverse in terms of blood. That's why I have children from, kita panggil sehitam legam ke seputih merah melepak kan. Jadi kalau race, matilah keluarga saya. Kena buang yang tak jadi Melayu tu kan. Kalau guna DNA Melayu kan. So that's why I think Malaysian we should stop using race. Oh, racism. Kita ni is ethnic and kita is cultural. Which means that it is not exclusive as what the West think. Kan? Kita very porous, very open. Kita ada benda, sebab saya tukar tajuk lah. Jadi nasib baik saya tukar, kenapa Prof Kharudin pun tukar juga kan. Jadi saya lebih suka bahas tentang religious harmony and peaceful coexistence. We should look at our strength rather than duk cerita benda-benda nakal kan. Jadi perangkat awal ni saya lebih bahas, let's talk about religion lah kan, religion. So at least dari segi epistemologi dia lah. So religion ni sebenarnya boleh diguna pakai to every whatever religion and belief and spirituality. Kali saya lebih suka let's define religion as a set of belief. Dia ada satu set keyakinan, and practice. Dia dua benda. Dia ada set keyakinan, ada set amalan. Dia tak boleh terpisah. Held and implemented. Dia dipegang dan dilaksanakan oleh individu. Okay. Jadi kalau saya sebenarnya it's a set of belief and practices yang individu ataupun individually ataupun as a group, kita sebenarnya untuk nurturing life sebenarnya. As adin, as kesyumulan, membina kemakmuran peradaban kan. To face the challenges ahead. Challenges tu dah Prof Kharudin dah bahas pagi tadi kan. So we should know that will always be with us kan. Saya ini benda-benda dia lah. Kalau saya religious behavior sebenarnya is to nurture life. The religion as a way of life. Itu benar. Next slide. Untuk supaya kita bahas ni dalam kerangka, kita panggil kerangka umum, supaya dia tidaklah centric to a religion. Soalan yang mana kita percaya itu hak masing-masing lah kan. Tapi kerana tu agama ni penting. Kenapa? Orang yang tak ada agama ni dia tak ada nilai. Orang yang tak ada nilai dia tak akan ada culture. Kalau dia tak ada culture, dia tak akan ada behavior yang sebenarnya akan melahirkan tekan laku yang kita panggil sekarang moral compass lah kan. Jadi bagi saya, kalau saya boleh berlapang dada. Kalau orang Islam berkata, mesti bertakwa in Allah lah kan. Kalau dah tak pun, biar kita we believe in the creator and the hereafter. Okay dah. Lepas tu, pergi bawah lagi, kita believe in the supra power. Beyond us kan. Satu lagi kita boleh kata spiritual, anda boleh turun ke bawah lah, moral ke philosophy, justice, human rights, civic principle tu as long dah ada nilai tu cukup lah. Tapi kalau dia bertakwa lagi bagus lah. Tapi itu hak masing-masing lah. Saya tak akan sempit how you see religion and God. To me penting you ada kepercayaan yang akan membina nilai. Next slide. Bagi saya, bila kita ada agama, ada ketahanan, ada nilai di situ, sebenarnya tingkah laku manusia ni from my studies, sebenarnya dia ada konservatif, dia ada progresif. Okay? Kalau Kalau konservatif ni mikir tentang ritual saja kan. Kalau yang cerdik sikit dia naik looking religion ascriptive, halal haram kan. Ada setengah naik atas sikit dia ada negative and positive lah, negativism and positivism about syurga neraka, dunia akhirat kan. Ada tu dah cerdik sikit pergilah managing life, kita panggil managing life. Yang tinggi lagi will be nurturing life. Jadi kalau saya perhati di Malaysia ni, kalau low education, low standard of education and rural and low income, sebenarnya we will be playing with kita panggil conservative behavior lah, religious behavior. Tapi kalau kita educated, we are urban, middle classes, cosmopolitan, we tend to be the progressive side lah. We tend to be managing life dan nurturing life. So itu dia selalunya boleh membangun. Kita boleh tengoklah masjid surau di kawasan konservatif tradisi kampung, dia takkan hidup sangat. Kalau kita pergi pada urban city center area, kerana di situ dia punya barisan kepimpinan, community are very, kita panggil middle classes, educated, dia boleh tengok hidup masjid dia punya lebih hidup. Ini benda-benda yang akan mempengaruhi how we behave. Tapi saya nak cerita, despite all this, religion can be good, can be bad. Tapi it is open to manipulation. It's open to manipulation. Yang lebih teruk tu, sebenarnya, sekarang, the issue being raised, ataupun yang being manipulated atas nama Tuhan dan agama tu, sebenarnya has nothing to do with religion. Has nothing to do with religion. Tapi kerana kita tak reti nak ampil, macam mana nak bongkar dia keluar supaya sebenarnya stop talking about religion, stop talking about the prophet, stop talking about macam kan. Akhirnya kita ingat dia religious spokesman kan. Ini benda-benda lah. Next slide. Okay, sebelum saya pergi dalam, saya nak tunjuk profil Malaysia dulu lah. Supaya we know that sekarang kita ada 32 juta lelaki macam semua. We are quite aware of that. Next slide. Dan kita tengok population kita berubah daripada 1970 sampai 2019 kan. Itu boleh tengok gila-gila kan. 32 ribu kan. Di sini saya nak cerita sikit. Kenapa sebenarnya kita ni bila kita kata Malaysia, kita kata Selangor, kita kata mana-mana negeri sebenarnya dia adalah product of, saya lebih suka panggil perantau. Dia product of perantau. Kena ingat peradaban arah Melayu ni, the Malay archipelago punya civilization is dia geofizikal dia kepulauan kan, and dia pelayar, dia pedagang. Jadi dia banyak dia menjadi perantau banyak. Tapi konsep sekarang kita guna migration, patutnya dalam bahasa Melayu dia jadi very ada segma lah, pendatang macam tu kan. Bagi saya elok kita guna konsep perantau. Dan ingat perantau ni bukan saja sebelum kita terbentuk negara moden sebelum pra-kolonial tu kita dah buat membina budaya perantau tu kan. Dan bila British datang pun dia membawa perantau masuk lagi daripada peradaban Asia. Kita panggil peradaban majmuk Asia, maka dia bawa masuklah China apa semua kan. Lepas tu bila kita dah merdeka, kita ada perantau daripada anak-anak negeri. Tapi jadi Malaysia, anak-anak negeri Sabah Sarawak pula. Jadi perantau tu very high. Lepas tu bila kita membangun, kita bukan saja perantau dalam peradaban dalam alam Melayu, tetapi juga di negeri-negeri Malaysia dan juga daripada antarabangsa hingga ke sekarang. Dan kita kan ingat alam Melayu ni is geofizikal dia is a maritime society. Geofizikal dia is pelayar dan pedagang. Geofizikal dia mesti berkawan dengan pelbagai budaya agama. Bukan saja di kalangan alam Melayu, but also from India, China and all those. So bagi saya, nilai sepunya yang kita dah bina sebelum Islam datang pun ialah toleration, mufakat dan non-violent. So this is very three dimension ini are very panggil the definer of our jati diri hingga ke sekarang. Islam datang mengukuhkan saja. Sebab itu kita tengok politik kita hari ini pun sebenarnya mesti diikat oleh toleransi, oleh mufakat, oleh non-violent kan. Jadi ini benda-benda yang perlu kita. So how the geophysical dan peradaban alam Melayu tu pada dulu sampai sekarang sebenarnya ini nilai utama. Kenapa kita ni bumi perantau? Kan? Sekarang saya nak cerita tentang Selangor lah sikit before I move to religion kan. Jadi kalau kita perhati Malaysia ada 7,000 household kan. Di Selangor tu 1.6 kan. Kan. Lepas tu yang tinggi Johor 8 kan. Itu salah tu. No. Salah tu arti 1 million over 1.6 million sebenarnya tu salah lah. Kan jadi Selangor ni dia punya household family is very size. Kan dia lebih tinggi daripada Malaysia. Saya nak cerita bila kita masuk Selangor everything is more than Malaysia. Jadi Selangor tu to me ada satu negeri yang perlu kita lihat dalam kerangka lebih besar lagi. Okay, next slide. Di sini kita boleh tengoklah bagaimana share of GDP Selangor. 22.7% tu Selangor punya kan. Jadi I think we need to be aware sebenarnya dia the top penyumbang Next slide. Dan kalau kita tengok kat sini share GDP mengikut manufacturing sector very high. Kan 28%, 29%, which means that it is kita panggil very industrialized. Ni kalau kita tengok GDP services, ini apa services lah. Selangor is 25.2%. Kan kalau gabung dia dengan Kuala Lumpur dah kan, separuh negara. Ini benar nak cerita. You are dealing with an economic powerhouse lah. Next slide. Ini nak tengok urbanization kan. Jadi kita Malaysia ni 79.8%. Tapi Selangor tu is 94.5% is cosmopolitan. Last weekend saya ada di Kuala Selangor pergi ke Sabak berenang. Betul lah it's rural tetapi you can sense the very cosmopolitan culture yang melebar dalam negeri tu. So this is very important, very cosmopolitan kan. Ini benda dah Prof Karudin duk cakap. Next slide. Ni kalau main income pun, jadi kalau Malaysia 5.8 ribu kan, Selangor is 8, hampir berganda kan. Jadi which mean that you are dealing with bukan saja negeri, rakyat dia pun kaya kan. Jadi untuk saya rumuskanlah, Selangor is a very high income, very cosmopolitan. Dia sebenarnya digerakkan oleh foreign investment, commercial industrial, dan dia adalah growth center of the nation. So which mean that dan kita nak memahami Selangor punya society, it's a multi-layering of wave of perantau saya panggil. From within alam Melayu, from Malaya, from Malaysia, from Asia and global. Which mean that macam Prof Karudin kata-kata lah, kalau nak kaji Selangor ni, dia ialah intertwined. Dia sudah terkait satu sama lain. Bagi saya, Selangor punya bila kita nak kaji sejarah, nak kaji perkembangan sejarah, nak kaji kehidupan Selangor, dia membumi bagi saya dalam sejarah dunia. Dia membumi, grounded in world history. So dia bukan panggil picisan, that's why. Jadi kalau ini benar-benar jadi ethno-religious composition dia bagi saya is not multi-ethnic, it's not diverse, it's about we are dealing with super diversity. Dan ingat, because dari atas the high income, cosmopolitan, industrialized, growth center, layering of perantau itu sebenarnya dia is a highly socially differentiated society. Menyatakan masyarakatnya begitu rencam. Kita tak boleh nak pinpoint, be it Melayu macam ni, Cina macam tu, India macam ni kan. Tak boleh nak pinpoint. Kenapa? They are beyond. They can have ethnic identity, religious identity, but they are in themselves, they have tremendous layering of identities. And this identity are beyond ethnic and religion. Ini menyebabkan Selangor tu become a power cake, economic power cake house, sehingga kan dia boleh menerima perantau-perantau pembangunan apa kan. So I think ini di antara asas. Which means that kalau kita nak bahas religion in Selangor, we are not dealing with Malaysia. We are dealing with Selangor, which is 20 years ahead of the nation. Sebab tu bagi saya, cara yang siapa nak mengurus Selangor ni, siapa nak merancang Selangor ni, you must think beyond RMK 12, kan. Jadi saya lebih suka bawa tajuk tentang peaceful coexistence. Jadi nak tinggal kat sini, you can see lah ada kepelbagaiannya kita di Selangor ni, kan, daripada Islamnya, Buddha semua ni, which is kan, ni benda-benda dah real dah. Ini based on my study. Mungkin saya Prasajid dengan Tamizia ada sama, kan. Saya kalau kajian saya di Malaysia ni, sebenarnya bila kita tanya how do you see ethnic identity, it is very, very important. Ini is very, very important because kalau yang merah tu lah waktu slide tu terjatuh, kan. To the Malays, ethnicity 93%, Chinese 85%, Indian 82%, kan, which is very high. Kita tengok the next slide, religious identity, lagi gila kan, Melayu 100%, Chinese 17%, Indian 93%. Jadi kalau kita tengok kat sini, our society ni sebenarnya how our social differences are organized. Despite the kerencaman tu, sebenarnya is masih dalam kerangka etnik dan agama. Tapi bukan bermakna dia sempit, bawah katak tepung, tak. Dia buka, tapi dia very proud, dia very merasa maruah diri dia, nilai diri dia. Itulah saya Melayu, saya Cina, saya Kedaton, saya Dusun. So it's something that is how we organize ourselves. Tetapi bukan bermakna cara kita melihat the world view, bergaul, buat benda tu very ethnic and religious centric. No, benda tu is us. Tapi kita tidak angkat dia sebagai, kita panggil motivation, determinant of our behavior. Ini benda-benda perlu penting. Next slide. Jadi di sini tunjuk sebenarnya betul lah. Kajian ini menunjukkan betul lah sebenarnya ethnicity ni important. Tetapi peliknya, orang Malaysia ni tak kira Melayu, Cina, India apa, kita sebenarnya lebih utamakan progress, modernity, development, kemakmuran. Dan kita lebih utamakan demokrasi, kita utamakan peaceful, kita reject extremism. So this is watak orang Malaysia. Ya betul, kita Melayu, Cina, Kedaton, Dusun macam gila-gila sangat. Tak. Sebenarnya kita utama benda-benda yang kita kongsi sama. Despite the differences, kita ada similarities. Commonality, we want kemakmuran, kita nak quality of life, kita nak peradaban, nak kemajuan, kan. Kita tak nak extremism. Violence is not an option, kan. Ini benda dah lah. Next slide saya kaji pun hampir sama. Which means that betul lah ethnic identity tu tinggi, tapi dah benda tu is part and parcel. Diterima, diperakui. Tak dirasa mencurigakan. Tetapi yang utama ialah how we see ourselves beyond ethnic and religion. Jadi based on my study since 1990 hingga my last study of 2002 and 2020, sebenarnya we can rest assured kita, despite the fact that our society is socially organized but ethnic and religion, no. The way we make choices dalam social action kita is not influenced by the calculation of ethnic and religion, but more by universal norms, by keadilan, by materialism, by status, by benda tu. Dia bukan ethnic. Ethnic is in certain areas. Okay, later on I share you where ethnic come in. Tu saya tengok ni, saya nak laju sikit. Ni saya nak cerita sebenarnya, despite the fact that we socially organize the differences in ethnic and religion, tapi kita nampak dia taklah utama. Padahal lebih utamakan kehidupan semua, kan. Bila kita tengok, adakah mereka terbina etos bangsa sebagai bangsa sepunya, sebagai bangsa Malaysia? Kajian menunjukkan sebenarnya around 20% lah yang ada yang rasa ada masalahnya, kan. Tapi overall sebenarnya very high, very high. Ini kajian saya buat dalam 2002. Kalau tengok the next slide, in 2003, same high, 80 above. Next slide, ini anak murid saya buat, dan kita kat sini dia punya mean tu very high. kan 89, 90 semua tu kan, ini benda dah. Chinese agak itu, tapi soalan dia high lah kan. Next, ini PhD anak murid saya pun tengok by all the value kat sini, yang dimensi yang kita guna untuk mengukurnya are very high. Okay, so ini benda-benda yang perlu kita tengok lah kan. Dan bila ada lompang, ada jatuh tu, kena kaji apa yang menyebabkan mereka merasa sedemikian. Okay, next slide. Ini PhD anak murid saya juga. Nak cerita kat sini is very high kan. Very high, 96% kan, very high kan. Next. Ini itu bahasa yang saya guna dalam 2018 dalam IPNAS. IPNAS is the Index Perpaduan Nasional Malaysia. Kita tengok kat sini boleh nampak lah. Etos bangsa tu are very high. And then the latest yang anak murid saya guna into 2020, next slide. Ini pun very high. Jadi sebenarnya kita jangan cepat sangat kutuk rakyat kita ni daripada pelbagai agama budaya walaupun berbeza. Ni tak patriotik lah, tak nationalism lah, kutuk benda. Study indicate we not only terbina sebagai rakyat Malaysia, terbina sebagai bangsa apa. Kan? Artinya ini benda-benda yang kita kena ada. Adalah lompang. Biasalah. Tapi persoalan dia, kita kena pasti di mana lompang dan then how to manage that. That is the task kita lah. Next slide. Ini ialah berdasar indeks yang dibina oleh Jabatan Perolehan Negara dan mereka membuat indeks ni daripada tahun 2008 hingga ke 2020 yang saya ada data pada 2020 ini tak keluar lagi. Sebenarnya across the year tu sebenarnya tak sampai 2% saja menunjukkan ada ketegangan yang melibatkan antara kumpulan. Yang lain dah very peaceful. Which means that kalau lah 2% saja yang ada salah faham, bergaduh, apa semua kan. Sebenarnya 98% is very peaceful coexistence. The index show. Kan? Ini bukan dalam tahun 2008 sampai 2020. Sebab itu kita perhati negara kita. Banyak kita kata kita ni tongue wagging but not berparang-parangan. Kan? Tikam menikam kutuk kami macam. Tapi sebenarnya jumpa pergi kedai mamak habis 10 di sana. Itulah watak kita kan. Next slide. Dan ini dasar comparative study yang dibuat bukan oleh kita. Dibuat oleh sarjana daripada Sri Lanka. Kalau yang kat bawah tu Sri Lanka. Jadi dia punya jangka hayat dia tu tak ada. Kenapa dia banyak bergaduh? Jadi pagar tu banyak sangat. Kuning, merah. Merah tu berdarah lah. Kita kalau kita tengok, kita ada juga pagar tu. Tapi boleh bilang jari dan spread across saja. Dan kalau ada pun, dia bergaduh lah. Kan? Bergaduh, motosikal, semua dia buat apa pembeli penjual, diloyak macam tu lah. Jadi across the year sebenarnya, Malaysia ni, kita panggil jangka hayat damai. Timeline of peaceful coexistence are much more developed despite what we think otherwise. Next slide. Ini berdasar kajian IPNAS. IPNAS menunjukkan kalau ambil yang bottom bawah ni, bottom hijau bawah tu, bagaimana the good governance and development yang selama ni kita kerajaan jaya urus dan laksanakan, dia telah mengubah masyarakat. Masyarakat dia boleh bergaul dengan retas kumpulan, dia boleh membina etos bangsa, dia boleh membina kita panggil kesepadan sosial. Lepas tu kalau ingat ini benda-benda dah, kalau tengok the next slide, ini agak penting the next slide. Kalau selama ni kami hanya guna we should be more concerned with governance than development. Tapi dalam kajian ini menunjukkan betul we should be concerned with governance and development. Ini penting bagi saya dialog kita hari ini, iaitu sebenarnya nilai tingkah laku insana pun very very important. Kenapa? Dia akan mengukur hubungan di antara kumpulan daripada pelbagai etnik agama. Dia akan membina etos bangsa, dia akan membina naratif bangsa. Dan jadi kalau kita biarkan negara kita hanya berdasar governance dan development, dia sebenarnya hanya menyelesaikan satu masalah saja. Kita kesepaduan sosial saja. Tetapi bila ada masalah ekonomi, krisis, COVID, pening kepala lah. Itu pentingnya bagi saya. This religious component, we are very, very important. That's why to me, I nak highlight ni sangat. Kenapa? Apa yang dibahaskan oleh Prof. Karudin dan oleh foreign sebelum ini sebenarnya that we should speak louder. We should speak louder. I tell you, we should speak louder as compared to who, kan? Lepas saya cerita lah. Okay, next slide. Ini bukan kita. Ini Global Peace Index. Dunia mengukur kita dari segi kedamaian. Daripada 2007 to 2021, I tell you, we have been performing as the top 20 country lah. Walaupun jatuh, turun, naik, turun kan. Tapi persoalan dia, being a post-colonial society, being kita panggil layering of perantau punya historical punya migratory kan. Tengok kita ni sebenarnya despite what we think, sebenarnya kalau banding dengan negara post-colonialized, kita one of the best. Banding dengan Islamic country lain pun, we are one of the best. Kenapa? We are among the top panggil negara yang diiktiraf damainya mereka. Okay, saat ini dunia mengiktiraf, bukan kita pula. Nanti kalau kita kata masuk baku pula kan. Okay, next. Jadi saya nak cerita laju sikit di sini. Macam saya kata tadi lah. Governance, migration, technology changes ni sebenarnya yang mengubah kita. Daripada miskin, pergi ke middle class, petani, subsistence farming, pergi ke apa semua kan. Jadi ini mengubah masyarakat kita. Ini benar-benar yang kita sedar. Okay, next slide. Jadi bagi saya, development yang berjalan daripada 1970 sampai sekarang sebenarnya dia telah membawa prosperity, kemakmuran, dan dia membawa perubahan. Tadi saya ceritalah ada subsistence farming to commercial industrial, poverty to middle classes, kampung to small. Ini sebenarnya the social changes. Kalau kita tengok apa impact di atas manusia? Impact dia ialah there will be social transformation. Next slide. Jadi there will be social transformation. Jadi rakyat kita nak apa berlaku? Kita ni Melayu, Cina, India, kadang-kadang Dusun, kadang mari Pakistan, mari Bangladesh, mari macam-macam benda tu. Tapi development dan governance yang baik tadi membuat perubahan sosial dan masyarakat berubah. Di mana kita mendekat the culture, modernity, the acceptance, the diversity. Jadi kita boleh tengok how kita boleh bukan only the differences, the sharing of unique norm, the similarities rather than differences, but the thinning of ethnic boundary and religious boundary. Kita bergerak horizontally, not because we or by ethnic religious definition. Dan hingga lahir hubungan kita is a cross-cutting social ties and group relationship, which means that kita tak bermain sesama kita. Kalau pengalaman saya universiti dulu kan, kami kalau hak cidik-cidik ni dia tak berkawan dengan sesama etniknya, dia akan cari geng-geng cidik, and often it is multi-ethnic. Masalah kita masuk dunia perniagaan, orang menega, bila dia nak menega, dia nak kaya, nak dapat duit banyak, dia akan cari bukan etnik dia, agama dia, cari siapa yang akan deliver profit to them. Sama lah, orang politik pun sama. Mungkin akhir kalamnya our world, walaupun toleransi, mufakat, kan, non-violent, very competitive, very meritocracy. If you are lazy, you are gone. Kita duduk dalam kerangka geophysical, peradaban Melayu yang kepulauan, maritime, very fluid, very dynamic. Kan? Ini benda-benda ada. Okay, next slide. Jadi kalau Malaysia, ini benar konsep yang kita kena angkat. Kenapa kita Malaysia ni tak banyak sociology scholars angkat yang Malaysia ni is a socially differentiated society. Betul, kita Melayu, Cina, India, masjid pun apa semua. Tak, tetapi sebagai seorang Melayu, seorang Islam, seorang saya pula Kelantan macam mana, kita banyak layer. Tapi we can interact beyond that. Sepertilah seorang Cina, sepertilah seorang India, seorang Kedasan, seorang Dusun. No, we can interact with others beyond that. Itu benda-benda yang kena faham. Sebab itu ini benar-benar ni yang kena faham, dan konsep ini sebenarnya saya perhati tak terbina dalam kerangka pemikiran kita. Kita masih bermain Melayu Cina India, Melayu Cina India. Untuk kita speak dah, walau masyarakat dah berubah. Okay? Jadi dia membuat nilai-nilai baru. Itu sebenarnya walaupun kita akan pilih UMNO ke PAS ke DAP ke apa, tapi benda yang kita tengok tu hampir sama. If you don't have this, we tinggal. Kan? Kita nak freedom of speech, kita nak access to information, not participatory democracy, tapi you kena ada integrity, social justice and all these things. Kan? Kalau you terlibat dalam ni, kami tendang kamu kan. Next slide. Jadi dalam kita nak bahas tentang religion, bagi saya, kita kena ingat, our religious discourse should be located within a socially differentiated Malaysian society. Karena kalau kita tak faham yang sebenarnya, masyarakat kita ni bukan dah Muslim centric, Islamic centric, Christian centric, Hindu centric dah. Kita ni sebenarnya, we recognize your faith, we accept your faith, we hormat, respect your faith. Tapi we are living in a socially differentiated Malaysian society, which mean that kita ada jati diri agama pun etnik, tapi kita tak impose orang. Akhirnya kita boleh berhubung berdasar nilai-nilai sepunya, berdasar pendidikan kita, pekerjaan kita, aspirasi kita. Akhirnya kita lebih terikat beyond that. Sebab itu to me, kalau saya lah nak bahas, sebenarnya there are inter-religious harmony in Malaysia. Okay? Lepas tu, and then inter-religious harmony dia intertwined with good ethnic relation. Dia di Malaysia ni tak pisah sangat kan. Lepas tu, dan good ethnic also prevail. Ini masalah dia yang kita risau tu, kadang-kadang dia prevail tapi kadang-kadang digugat. Walaupun dia wujud by over politicizing of ethnic dan religion oleh our political elites and NGO dan media negara. Ini masalah dia lah. So I think daripada benda yang kita kena lihat lah. Karena kita tahu politicizing of ethnic religion can be very destructive to unity and nation building. Tapi saya dok perhati, ini kena sedar, kadang-kadang kita punya governance development, dia tak fikir sangat nilai ni, nation building ni. Karena bila kita dulu, alam Melayu ni, kita melihat dalam kerangka kerajaan, feudalism tu, dan kerangka kesultanan. British, bila penjajah datang, dia pisahkan pembangunan negara dengan pembinaan bangsa. State development and nation building. Akhirnya kita perhati, kebanyakan our leader, sebenarnya are caught, walaupun kita dah merdeka, dia sebenarnya terperangkap dalam bukan membangun negara bangsa. Dia terperangkap dalam membangun negara, pembangunan. Dia akhirnya terlepas bangsa. Membangun solidarity tu lemah. Unity tu lemah. Become terpanggil lip service saja. Kan British dengan laissez-faire capitalism, dia profit tunggu teruskan. Tahu Razak nampak the maintain, tak boleh economic growth, kena redistribution. Lepas tu Tun Mahathir naik daripada Tun Razak punya kaedah, dia pergi develop country. Datuk Seri Najib pergi ke high income. Akhirnya apa jadi? Semua jadi market. Akhirnya kebanyakan masyarakat terabai. Bukan saja pembangunan tak difikir, benda yang sama masa PS market lagi. PS ni cuba nak balik pada Tun Razak, tapi kerana kestabilan itu tak boleh kekal. Nak PM 2.0 bagi saya nak balik pada Tun Razak, tapi bagi saya dia terperangkap dengan politik patronage. Akhirnya corruption tak boleh lagi lah. Ini rakyat Malaysia suka benarnya. Kita suka bercakap isu. Isu tu, isu ni, isu ni. Bagi saya, kalau kita nak tengok isu di Malaysia ni, benar ni sudah diamal daripada ni. Bila kita tolak Malay Union, British tubuh the community liaison committee. Mereka sudah tumbuh isu dah. Pendidikan, kerakyatan, budaya macam-macam kan. Okey? Dan benar ni kita pelik tu. Kita dah bercakap isu sampai sekarang. Yang saya nak cerita ni, isu-isu ni bagus. Soalan nak tendang masuk goal mana? Itu benar saya ni kan. Nak masuk goal mana? Kenapa? Kalau isu saja, you tak boleh nak manage them. Okay? So next slide. Jadi bila isu tu kita biarkan jadi, ada jadi macam ni. Di mana data indicate clearly, every time election time, dia punya spark tu naik ke atas. Lagi hangat dia punya election time, campaign pilihan raya, lagi naik atas. Itu menunjukkan sebenarnya ahli-ahli politik kita memang mempergunakan etnik agama untuk dapat pengaruh dan undi. Kerana lepas undi, lepas pilihan raya tak ada, dia reda balik. Tak sampai 4 tahun lagi dia naik balik. Itu penyakit kita. That's why to me we have to be very serious with mereka yang bermain dengan hate speeches dan kelihatan berbau sensitif. Because Data indicate clearly, every time you have election, every time you have campaign pilihan raya, kamu menakutkan kecil perut habis rakyat. Hingga kan kita terasa tengok muka Cina, India semua naik takut. Sebab tu, kalau zaman ni, kita akan berlari ke supermarket, beli barang sampai untuk 3 tahun, takut berlaku apa-apa. Kan? Ini penyakit kita. So please tell the politicians, stop jadi bata api kan. Data the next one sama saja. Sama saja, iaitu bila pilihan raya dia gerundung naik. Tak ada pilihan raya dia turun. Cuba bayang kesian kat rakyat kan. The next slide sama. Every time election dia naik. Spike saja. Tengok the spike kaki tu gila-gila. Kenapa daripada 2000 ke 2000 hingga ke sekarang we over politicize every aspect of our life. Jadi bodoh kitanya. Kan? Tapi nasib baiklah rakyat cerdik pada orang politik. Kenapa? Kerana tidak hancur lebur negara ni. Kenapa? Bila mereka berhenti bercakap, kita jadi baik. Jadi harmoni balik negara kan. Jadi ini benar-benar kena sedar. Next slide. Bagi saya, we should stop talking about issues. We should be talking macam bagi saya isu-isu yang tak adil tu sebenarnya mesti dilocate within these four categories. Bagi saya, kalau isu kubur, orang Hindu kat mana, bakar mayat kat mana, kuil kat mana, kongsi Cina kat mana, pada pendidikan anak bahasa ibunda, dia bukan itu bukan persoalan etnik ataupun budaya. Dia adalah tugas kerajaan. You should govern them. You should beri peruntukan kalau dia perlu. Kalau ada undang-undang, berilah panduan kat dia. Kalau ada denda, ajar dia kan. Jadi rasa kalau benda tu kerajaan boleh handle lah. Dan di antara masalah kita Malaysia ni, peliklah kita Malaysia ni. It's high time we need to very open lah. Kalau saya duduk bersama dengan mereka yang pegang kerajaan di perangkat federal atau negeri, sebenarnya dah ada peruntukan untuk sekolah Cina, untuk gereja, untuk kuil. Tapi dia tak sebut. Yang kuil dibagi oleh YB ni. Kristian oleh YB ni. Yang sekolah Cina YB ni. Agama ni kan dia pelik kita orang Malaysia ni. We should institutionalize how governance peruntukan ke infrastruktur boleh kita beri secara adil dan baik. Ini hujah SUK pagi tadi pun. Kita kena mengurus masyarakat pelbagai agama ni dengan adil dan baik. Jadi kalaulah kita boleh beri dia tanah, bagilah. Kalau kita boleh bagi bangunan, boleh bangunan. Kalau tak boleh, cakap tak boleh kan. Jadi persoalan dia, we need to be very clear cut in our SOP supaya setiap etnik tadi, agama tu ada ruang untuk mendapat keadilan dan diurus mereka dengan baik. Jadi kat sini jangan kita kata inilah pokok Hindu, inilah pokok Kristian. Tak. Mereka ni rakyat Malaysia. Kita kena urus kepelbagaian budaya agama mereka, bahasa tu. Dan kerajaan kena sediakan the infrastructure, the governance, the peruntukan untuk mengurusnya. Dan benar lah SOP. Jangan duduk sembunyi kat belakang sekarang. Sekarang ni sembunyi. Bukan tak bagi duit pada sekolah Cina pun. Bukan tak bagi duit kat gereja pun. Bukan pun tak bagi duit kat kuil. Beri. Tapi sembunyi. Bagi saya, no. We should stop this. Dia panggil apa? Kita panggil failure to understand. Yes, we have to manage our religious, cultural, linguistic punya diversity ni dengan adil dan baik. So ini. Jadi kalau ini selesai, tak jadi isu etnik lah. Kan? Kalau sebenarnya itu bukan isu etnik. Okay, the next slide. Sebenarnya tentang no, sorry, next slide. Nombor 2, sorry. Go back. Tak maaf. Panjang saya kat sini sikit ni. Kenapa? Yang kedua tu, timbullah isu kemiskinan negara Melayu, kemiskinan dengan orang India, kemiskinan juga di kalangan anak bandar Cina kenapa? Kenapa? Kita kena sedar governance dan development bukan semuanya betul. Kalau kita pada dasar tadi, kebanyakan our leaders kita panggil, kalau Tun Mahathir is urban industrial policy, he can't be bothered about yang lain tu. Lepas tu tanya ditinggal bodoh kan. Kalau tengok Datuk Seri Najib, dia high income group. high income country dah tak fikir kebajikan, kan? Bazir berhabis duit semua kan. Jadi benda-benda macam ni. Bagi saya, ini menunjukkan there is, kita panggil development and governance tadi kena jelas. If there is social inequality in the country, there is unequal intervention, you cannot deliver justly and inclusively, then you should strengthen yourself or we vote you out from power. Jadi rakyat kena sedar dah. Ini bila orang Cina minta, India minta kerana kemiskinan. Cuba, jadi kalau kadang kita naik sedih lah. Kenapa? Ini isu governance dan development. It has nothing to do with a Chinese, a Malay, an Indian, a Kadazan, or Dusun. No. It is your task. Your task to govern and deliver development kepada welfare needs of the society, kan? Satu lagi yang kena jaga ini saya panggil the gang wayar putuh ni lah. The ethno-religious centric and hate speeches. Palut kita dah kena buat lah ni. Akta hate speech kena dah ada dah. Kenapa? Lately geng-geng gila ni lah, geng-geng wayar putuh yang menyebabkan kita jadi biu ni. Walau kita duk kawan ini bermain ni akan jadi pening kepala kita. Kenapa? Lepas tu bila dah jauh daripada musim pilihan raya, dia bercakap baik pula dah. Masa di parlimen dia duduk makan semeja pula, kadang-kadang pernah heran, pening kepala kita kan. Dan the fourth one, ini penting. The fourth one kena penting. Bukan ini kadang-kadang kita ni walaupun satu bangsa Malaysia, sebangsa sepunya, kadang-kadang you don't even know yourself, you don't even know your own nation. Ingat, Malaysia ni ialah Malaysia dan Selangor ia ialah heritage, dia ada panggil grounded in peradaban alam Melayu. Jadi konsep peradaban alam Melayu, bangsa perantau tu, bangsa payung peradaban alam Melayu, peradaban payung sistem sosio-politik budaya Melayu tu, itulah dia. Maksudnya itulah pasak negara ni. Sebab tu bagi saya, kalau you bawa mari diskurs multiculturalism as a political, bukan as cultural. Cultural sebagai mengurus culture tu, to me, kita tak guna multiculturalism, kita guna intercultural, managing the intercultural community, kan, society, kan. Multiculturalism dia is more politicized. Dia nak kenapa? Membina communitarian dalam negara yang sama. Dia nak membina multinationalism negara sama. Akhirnya, will be different part. That's why to me we should reject multiculturalism. Oh no, salah. Jadi ni case study ni. Jadi kalau benda ni dah diedar pada mereka yang hadir, you cuba tengok. Siap kes ni Plaza Kota Raya duduk kat mana? Kampung Medan duduk kat mana? Kalau tak tu macam India, Melayu, Cina dah. Dah bila kita tengok benda betul, has nothing to do with ethnic. Plaza Kota Raya soalan panggil low income group bermasalah. Kampung Medan masalah poverty. Civil Temple is issue of kita panggil urban poverty, kan. Hendraf is issue of social disparity. Kita tengok influencer Alvin Vivian yang duk gila-gila tabu tu. Dia sebenarnya terikut oleh the politicizing of ethnic and religion. Dia tengok street demonstration bersih, nothing to do with the Namle. Dia ialah masalah bad governance, mengurus kita panggil electoral processes, kan. May 13 to me is about contestation of the nation. Even the PS downfall pun is the contestation of nation dengan kerangka bukan integrasi peradaban alam Melayu, tapi dengan multicultural. You cakap macam tu, tengoklah daripada by election Cameron sampai ke Melaka, PS and DAP will not have any place. You must realign yourself with the nation. Jadi kalau kita nak manage interreligious peaceful coexistence, bagi saya tertariklah dengan perbahasan yang dibawa oleh religious elite tu. Kenapa? We kena cakap banyak tentang spirituality. Jika kalau kita tak cakap spirituality, tak ada orang yang cakap tentang nilai, tentang moral compass. Akhirnya semua jadi hantu raya. Kan? That's why to me ini benda kan dia. I think we have tremendous religious and cultural asset that can boleh membina the bond that cement us. And I think this is our role. So don't let the politician define us. Dan salah satu lagi, kerana saya perhati banyakkan kefahaman kita tentang race, ethnic religion ni tak betul. We need to kena belajar, pilih belajar ethnic and religious study ni kan. From the sociology perspective. Dan satu lagi kita kena sedar, kita banyak kefahaman daripada kerangka colonial knowledge, the British. Dia pisah politik dengan agama, negara bangsa dengan negara, kan? Dia pisah habis nation building dengan development. Dia macam dia nak data nak kau utuhnya, kita duk ikut dia buat apa? Kena ikat balik kementerian kita tu bukan saja portfolio you, tapi portfolio tu mesti diukur berdasar performance mengikut portfolio, internal rate of return, intern kita panggil social impact, internal environmental impact, tetapi juga ada impact perpaduan di situ kan. Jadi ini kena ada lah. Bagi saya, we need to look our society as a socially differentiated society which demand new political definition. Kalau boleh kita kena reset our political culture sekarang yang bermain dengan exercise and religious punya manipulation. Dan we all should study our history. Kena tengok grounded in the peradaban alam Melayu tu. Jangan kita mengaji, kita tengok Malaysia ni dalam kerangka PRU 2018. No. Dia ada rintisan sejarah ke belakang, dia ada layering of history. Dia ada kita panggil layering of perantauan yang bisa membina kita. Nak kena negara kita ni tidak terpisah daripada peradaban dunia, dia membumi. So ini very important. And to me, our federal constitution, our state constitution, rukun negara, and all those dasar population basis sebenarnya memahami kita. Persoalan dia kita suka exercise sebenarnya. Next slide. Jadi kalau kita nak strengthen religious peaceful existence, to me, government must manage social inequality. Very important. You must make sure social inequality are managed. It's very important. Dan development and growth must be distributed. Tak boleh benarkan puak kaya siapa banyak-banyak sekarang. T20 duk count berapa pendapatan harta negara kan. No, we need based policy. Very important kan. Tapi tanpa menafikan lah. Dia panggil trust perlembagaan negara tu, yang ada kedudukan orang Melayu, anak Sabah Sarawak tu, itu tak boleh habis. Tapi persoalan dia, bagi pendekatan saya shouldn't be regional or corridor. It should be very kita panggil clinically managed. Kerana isu sekarang is pocket of household, pocket of individual yang perlu diuruskan kan. To me ini benda dia. And then governance of the cultural and religious need of the diverse ethnic religious community should be just inclusive. Tadilah. Ini sesuai dengan ayat Quran dan surah Al-Mumtahanah tu. Kalau sekiranya mereka tidak memerangi menghalau kita rumah kita kena berlaku adil dan baik dengan dia. Jangan pilih ayat Al-Mumtahanah ayat 1 nombor perang kan. Jangan. Pasal ada ayat 78 yang sebenarnya mengatakan kalau mereka tidak menghalau kita, tak perangi kita, urus mereka baik. Bagi saya, sekolah kebangsaan tu perlu diperkasakan. Dengan di sebelah petang tu dia ajar setiap budaya, setiap agama, setiap bahasa di sebelah petang. We should do that. Barulah anak-anak kita ada ruang untuk duduk di sekolah yang sama, pada main yang sama, kantin yang sama. Sekarang ni kita drifting apart. Kenapa? Kita tak nak provide that. Walau kita memperakui pembangunan negara bangsa, kita integrasi menerima kepelbagaian, memperakui identiti etnik agama. Tapi kenapa sekolah kita menjadi very Malay-centric? No, we have to empower the school then. Okay, lepas tu hate speech and crime, seperti saya kata tadi, kena ambil tindakan. Religious should be courageous. Ini saya nak cerita lah. Kita sekarang duk cakap, no, we should be very courageous and talk about how religion can provide, how religion can makmurkan negara, how religion can together we can reconstruct our community. Ini benda-benda lah kan. Dan untuk kita memahami supaya kita membina bukan kemakmuran, tapi bangsa sepunya. Interest leaders and organizations should be the catalyst to community development. Saya dijemput kepada Institute Evangelist di Lokan. Kalau dengar nama pun dah Kristian kan. Tapi bagaimana dipanggil agama samawi, Islam, Kristian, Yahudi, fikir macam mana kita nak membangun pembangunan komuniti di bandar menggunakan agenda 21. I think we need to do that. Jangan buat main suruh fikir agama. Bawa main fikir bagaimana nak selesai kemiskinan. Buat main bagaimana nak selesai pembangunan. Maksudnya pembangunan kecerahan pelajar anak-anak kita. Buat mai pada macam itu supaya we contribute to kemakmuran dan peradaban, kan. Jangan kita orang agama ni suruh baca kitab saja, tak kenalah bagi saya. We need move away from the kitab and move away into kehidupan. Agama sebagai kehidupan, menyubur kemakmuran dan peradaban. Next slide. Kalau saya, we need to understand. Jadi kalau sebab saya kata tadi, Malaysia ni jangan main dengan multiculturalism. Satu dunia sebenarnya tolak multiculturalism. Kita masih nak bermain. Kenapa setiap negara tu dia ada cultural territory yang mentarikh bangsanya. Kalau kita ni ialah kita panggil the peradaban alam Melayu tu, it's our cultural territory. Jadi kalau kita panggil kena orang Melayu di Selangor ada Jawa mana sebagai pendatang, tak boleh. Pasal dia bangsa perantau alam Melayu. Dan bagi saya untuk mendekatkan dengan mereka yang merantau ke kawasan sini daripada peradaban Asia, India benapa tu kan, Arab kan. Kita tak payah panggil dia pendatang, panggil dia perantau bersama kita kan. Karena sebenarnya peradaban kita, sejarah kita sebenarnya membumi dalam world history. Next slide. That's kalau Malaysia nak memahami, dia tak boleh lari. That is the core, that is the platform. Ini Malaysia kena terima. Our constitution are very defined. That's not, bagi saya, perlembagaan is our pelindung. It's the surveyor. Kenapa? Dia very inclusive, very just to all. Okay, next slide. Jadi ini benar-benar kena ingat bagi saya, kita tak sedarnya sebenarnya negara kita ni berlapis-lapis dah. Kalau perang kolonial dulu, kita civilization economy of the Malay archipelago. Bila British datang, dia British economic colonialism. Dan dia datang nak kau saja kan. Dan lahir Pro Society. Post Second World War, orang Melayu menggerakkan pergerakan massa daripada kumpulan Melayu yang berbeza-beza dan negeri lah apa suku-suku lahirlah bangsa Melayu. Dan UMNO ditubuh. Dan ingat, UMNO is not a party ethnic. Dia adalah parti bangsa Melayu. And this has been penyakit kita. Kenapa? Kita ingat UMNO tu Melayu. Dah, UMNO ialah bangsa Melayu. Walhal konsep bangsa ni diguna oleh perlembagaan rakyat. Dia panggil rakyat Melayu kan. Jadi ini benar-benar bagi saya kena relook and rethink how we see our bangsa Malaysia sebagai bangsa sepunya dalam kerangka payung peradaban anak watan alam Melayu ni kan. Kalau post independent kita banyak bercakap kerana kita biarkan UMNO itu jadi parti politik, dia jadi melih harga benih lah. Lepas tu post Malaysia kita bina, kita panggil ketuanan anak watan lah kan. Tapi bagi saya daripada post reformasi, dia telah mengubah cara berfikir untuk tak angkat bukan dari segi hegemoni Melayu atau anak watan, tapi dalam kerangka besar iaitu kanopi civilization bangsa Malaysia. Menunjukkan kerangka peradaban Melayu tu dibawa dalam kerangka ada bangsa kita. Dan saya perhati post GE 14 ni nampak sangatlah. Post ini nampak sebenarnya there is an emergence kita panggil of the Malaysian Gen 3. Dia berbeza daripada Gen 1 punya watak. Gen watak tu kita boleh tengok perangai-perangai yang veteran politik tu. Tahan Melayunya, Cinanya semua kan. Macam Ronnie Liu tu orang kampung. Tapi bila dia buka mulut, dia become very chauvinist kan. Lim Kek Siang pun pening kepala kita dengan dia kan. Dan Lim Kok Im pun dia macam kaki ke sana ada, ke sini ada. Saya lebih tertarik dengan the Malaysian Gen 3. Kita tengok Fahmi PKR, dalam PAS ada, dalam UMNO ada. Dalam DAP kita boleh tengok Ong Kaming, kita boleh tengok Hanayo, kita boleh tengok Tommy Puah. Saya rasa sebenarnya it's high time our nation should give priorities and to our Gen Malaysian 3 ni yang sebenarnya lebih terbina dengan bangsa sepunya daripada perbezaan etnik. Okay, in conclusion, next slide. Sebenarnya bila kita nak bahas, saya tak nak baca slide ni kan. Sebenarnya bila kita nak bahas perkara-perkara yang kena ingat. Our nation has changed. Our identity as bangsa has changed. So we shouldn't look dalam kerangka bipolar yang dulu binary dan macam dulu dah. Kita is so rencam, walaupun rencam itu pelbagai itu dia tak bermakna dia tak ada akar. Akarnya peradaban Melayu, peradaban payung bangsa sepunya anak watan tu. Tapi dia mendakap, dia boleh mengikat, panggil, kalau saya ni, we're not talking about multi-ethnic, we're not talking about diversity, we are talking about bangsa Malaysia dalam kerangka aneka kepelbagaian. Sekian, wallahualam.
Okay, thank you so much to Professor Mansur. Inshallah, due to time constraint, maybe we could afford only one quick question. If any have question to Prof. Mansur, please. No, if not, maybe we have to move to our next session. So last call, if any question to Prof. Mansur. Okay, one question in the chat room, Prof. How do we deepen our mainstream national political thought that its popular discourse is able to find a solution beyond ethno-religious sentiment intertwined with development politics and politicians who thrive on them?
I think the problem is our leaders. Sebenarnya we inherited British punya political culture. See, British come to us with a plural society political culture. Dia biar kita duduk dalam setiap komponen masing-masing, nilai tak ada nilai mengikat bersama. And then kita duk follow benda tu juga. Macam jadi kalau CLC British tubuh tu, dia lantik elit daripada etnik Cina, Melayu, India duduk dalam tu kan. Bagi saya, it's high time we should drop that approach. Jangan bermain dengan elit politik per se of the group. Kita carilah kita panggil NGO bersifat development, about kebajikan, that thing beyond ethnic. Kan? Kadang-kadang itu tugas kita lah. Bagilah mereka ni ruang untuk jadi jatuh kuasa di peringkat daerah, libatkan mereka dalam kita panggil jatuh kuasa esko negeri, libatkan mereka dalam sebagai pegawai di peringkat kementerian. Later on, they learn benda. Kenapa? To me, our nation sebenarnya rest on them, not on the Gen 1 and Gen 2. And Gen 3 bermasalah. Dia dah jadi global citizen lah, bermasalah. So kalau kita nak negara kita ni can penetrate beyond ethnic and religion. Walaupun kita tahu kita ada core nation, kita ada nilai utama, ada apa, tetapi dah we can grapple with that and bind us together di atas persamaan tadi hingga we can go beyond ethnic and religion. I think that's our task. And that's why I think we need to reset our political culture. We should stop ethnic politicking. We should tell them, please stop using our ethnic and religion for your political popularity and vote. We should be courageous to speak.
Okay, thank you. Once again, we would like to thank very much to Professor Dr. Mansur Muhammad Noor for this very informative and mind-opening speech and lecture. So thank you once again, Prof. With that, inshallah, we will move to our next session, the discussion 2, entitled The Necessity of Dialogue Between Different Religions to Resolve Societal Issues in Selangor. With that, I would like to invite the moderator for this session, Mr. Muhammad Akmal Amri, Executive Director, Institute for Research and Development of Policy, IRDP. Please welcome Mr. Akmal. The session is yours now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sayuti. Can you all hear me clearly? Okay, thank you. Yang Berhormat Datuk Haji Haris bin Kasim, the State Secretary of Selangor, YB Dr. Siti Mariam Mahmud, Chairman the Selangor Public Health Unity Women and Family Development Committee, Professor Datuk Dr. Muhammad Hashim Kamali, Founding CEO, IAIS Malaysia, Associate Professor Dr. Syed Muhammad Khairuddin Al-Junid, Department of Malay Studies, National University of Singapore, Prof. Dr. Mansur Muhammad Noor, Institute of Ethnic Studies, KITA UKM, Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad Azam Muhammad Adil, Deputy CEO IAIS Malaysia, respected line of featured speakers and panelists, members of the organizing committee, Tan Sri, Puan Sri, Datuk, Datin, ladies and gentlemen. As a rapidly evolving state in Malaysia and home to a multi-ethnic and multi-religious society, Selangor faces societal challenges involving relations between ethnic and religious communities. This convention jointly organized by Majlis Perpaduan and Integrasi Negeri Selangor, MPIS, Pejabat Esko Perpaduan Kerajaan Negeri Selangor, YB Dr. Siti Mariam, International Institute of Advanced Islamic Studies, IAIS Malaysia, and Institute for Research and Development of Policy, IRDP. This convention provides an interfaith dialogue platform underpinned by the spirit of mutual respect and consultation for coming up with potential solutions or measures to improve relations between communities in the state. Through this platform of dialogue, it is hoped that leaders of various religious backgrounds may interact with one another in sharing their aspirations, priorities, and sensitivities in the pursuit of enhancing unity and mutual understanding within the society in Selangor. Thank you everyone for being here. I really appreciate your time, and I hope you're gonna benefit greatly from this discussion. Join me and other esteemed speakers to discuss the topic of the necessity of dialogue between different religions to resolve societal issues in Selangor. We have with us today 4 esteemed speakers: YB Gana Batirau Anaki Baraman, Mr. Mujibu Abdul Muiz, Mr. Shakrit Kakulal Govinji, and Mr. Edin Hu. For the first round, I would like to invite YB Gana Batirau to discuss the presentation that was shared by Professor Dr. Mansur Muhammad Noor. YB Gana Batirau was born on June 6, 1973 in Teluk Intan, Perak. He received his early education at SJK Sitambaran Pillai Teluk Intan, Perak, and later he went to St. Anthony's High School, Teluk Intan, Perak. He continued his studies in law at the Advanced Tertiary College until he obtained a Certificate of Legal Practice, CLP, from Brickfields Asia College, which qualifies him to serve as a lawyer. He started his career as a lawyer in a law firm in the Teluk Intan before establishing his own law firm, Vigana and Associates, in 2007. As a Malaysian politician, he currently holds the State Assemblyman constituency for N50 Kota Kemuning in the state of Selangor. He is also the co-chairman of Selangor Buddhism, Christianity, Hinduism, Sikhism, and Taoism Special Committee, or LIMAS, and also the chairman of the Standing Committee on Welfare, Socio-Economic Development, Workers, and Kerajaan Perhatian after the 14th general election in 2018. Without further ado, let's welcome YB Gana to share his thoughts.
Thank you for giving me such a big introduction. Okay, it's okay. Honestly, I joined just now, half an hour ago. Thank you. I saw the way the Professor Mansur, really I'm impressed with so many inputs by him. Thank you, Prof, for sharing your thoughts with us. And today, because I was given the necessity of the dialogue between different religions to resolve societal issues in Selangor. I believe not only in Selangor, the entire Malaysia. Between the religious group or ethnic group, ethnicities in Malaysia, I think the trust deficit is the cause of all the different issues that we can see that. The trust between each other is deficit here. Like it or not, we must admit that the fact that is, in every side, there will be saying that there is a trust, or either they will be saying that one or the other, they feel that they're being discriminated or somehow marginalized, or maybe they're not respecting a particular religion or particular race by the other. This is the, be it in majority or minority, both sides having the same thoughts, that is trust deficits. And further, what we understand is we must admit that way before our father's time, our forefathers' time, we were much united than now. That's the real fact that I have to tell you, because we were not that much given priority to our religion then. At that time, about 50 years back, what I can see is we are more about looking a room for staying together, a place for living together. We respect a Malay as a man, a Malay respect Indian as a man. The same goes to Chinese and others. Because we are seeing as a human being and so much, and we know that each of us have a different culture and religion and so on. That time, if you remember, somebody is playing in football field, someone is being heated up, they will say, "Eh, Anak Ali telah pukul Anak Mutu." That's how the way we have been saying. I mean, last time, the way the conversation in kampung folks or within the estate boys. Today is not that way. Today we call it Itu keling sudah pukul the other side. Or we will call it the mama. We will say that somewhere we like to calling by ethnicity with the tarnishing way. So religious also same thing. We don't have much about, we know each other's religion, so much of clarity is not there. Today in so much of so-called curriculum books in school books, much of the Hinduism or other religions beside Islamic religion, what is my understanding is being written by none other than the same religious person. You see, what I'm saying this is about Hinduism, someone who don't know about Hinduism is writing about Hinduism in the school books also. So the way the explanation of the Hinduism is totally incorrect. That caused trust deficit. The same thing goes, you see, whenever the festivals, cultural belief and so on, last time I think about 40, 50 years, not only 40, 50 years, 30 years ago also, when we are sharing ourselves, the festival seasons like a Deepavali open house or any other open house, there will be sharing the foods and so on is much easier the way we share today. We are looking forward with some kind of religious lineage in every time, whatever we want to say, whatever we want to share. The same thing goes when the housing area, when come with the religious, particular religious, temples being set up or other religious temples. Then also the same thing in Islam, especially, even though in the master plan there will be some kind of non-Islamic places worships has been gazetted place. When we want to build, there will be demonstration, memorandums after memorandum. We are facing these things in Islam too. And wherever being built, any other temples and so on, because what I can see is the politicians who are using religion and race as the biggest trump card, or the ultimate weapon for their success, they are manipulating many things. The normal person who are on the street, be it any religion, be it Islamic or Buddhism or Taoism or Hinduism or Christianity, I believe the men on streets want to live peacefully, harmony, respecting each other, not politicians. In so, I'm saying so, let us come back to our topic, saying that the necessity of dialogue between different religious groups. I strongly believe this way the platform can give us to understand each other better. It must be a continuous effort. It's very sad, after 63 years of independence, we are still talking about unity, but our diversity actually nothing to do with any differences here. The diversity of the religious, or in a way of culture, or even our languages, is not a barrier for our unity, but it's more on politics. Please, we must understand that. So to do away with that, I strongly believe we should call more frequent multi-religious groups, different faiths together, come and sit, to build ourselves as we are same, we are heritating this beautiful country. We are citizens of this country. Let us understand each other. We must understand the constitution very clearly. We respect each religions the way that we have to respect each humans in this country. By that way, I strongly believe we can do away with any differences in the base of the religion. Even we can do away with the politician who want to use us the name of the religion. Thank you again, Prof. Just now you have highlighted many issues together. You did really, I was stunned by you're quoting such certain issues very boldly. But I believe every corner is not only the view of the view of distrust is not only from one ethnic side. It's actually all the ethnicity sides. Even discrimination can be happen in every corner, every religion. Same thing goes to hated speech from the other sides. So if there's an importance ready, we must push together inter-religious act, I strongly believe. anyway, it's very important to understand, because you like country like us, it's easy to flames. I mean, we put a fire and then make it a religious rights. Because what I can see is nowadays, even though so-called we are developed, most of us are well educated, but we are being used by these so-called religious politicians. So it can be worked either way. So if at all we have some kind of a good understanding, good committees where we can each other respect and we can have a common ground, we can work together, stay together, understand together. That will bring us as a Malaysians, where Malaysian is popular for the multi-ethnicity and also multi-religious, but we can have a harmony. The country is being a favorite country for the tourists from all over the world, because we have this kind of qualities. Today is alarming situation. As I believe I don't need to explain further. But again, how much the religious scholars are playing a role. It's not only ourselves. The civil society have to play a role. The civil society is who? Religious scholars, I believe, is from all the religions. Same thing goes to not only politicians per se, but it's also, for example, how about Rukun Tetangga or resident associations down there? Whether within the communities, whether they can come together or not. Like for example, in Alamega Shalam, in my place, where I can see the Rukun Tetangga can celebrate Deepavali together, Chinese New Year together, even though very few houses of Chinese, and they can celebrate Hari Raya together. So you see, the community themselves building as a part of Malaysian culture. That's how should be. We must together. We must come together. We shows that truly, honestly accepting each other as a fellow brothers and sisters. Without that, just now I said it when I started. I saying that the deficit of trust will forever divide us. So I'm urging you, everybody here, my fellow comrades, panelists, the attendees here, so many of you, please let us put together ourselves, hold our hands together, saying that we can do away with any extremist thoughts or hated each other's thoughts being brought by someone else. I strongly believe our forefathers intended this country as one. There is no such thing called as two different law sets for the same citizens here. So that's all I want to say. Let's build back our trust on each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Ebigana, for that sharing. Really appreciate your insights. Next, let's move on to our next discussion. Mr. Mujibu Abdul Muiz. He's a senior lecturer of political science of the Faculty of Administrative Science and Policy Studies at University Technology Mara Seremban, UiTM. He obtained a bachelor in political science from the International Islamic University of Malaysia and a master's in political science from University Kebangsaan Malaysia, UKM. Currently, Mr. Mujibu is a PhD candidate in political science at the University Kebangsaan Malaysia. Apart from that, he is a weekly columnist for Sinar Harian newspaper and a political analyst who is often invited by several eminent Malaysian media such as RTM, TV3, TV Al Hijrah, Esra Awani, Bernaba TV, and Malaysia Gazette to comment on current Malaysian and global issues relating to politics, elections, ethnic relations, and international relations. He is also frequently consulted and given his views on opinions for key and prominent national newspapers such as Sinar Harian, Berita Harian, Utusan Malaysia, NST, and Cosmo. Without further ado, let's hear from our esteemed speaker, Mr. Mujibu. The floor is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
And very good afternoon to all the audience. So I would like to say thank you for the invitations. So this is my thought on the topic. Yeah, when it was given to me, I thought with the lineup of this distinguished speaker and of course Prof. Manso as a spearhead in this discussion. So I think it is not going to be very significant for me to highlight everything because all those experts will going to help us in all those things. But I would like to give my insight from the political perspective on the topic, especially when we are talking about the importance of dialogue between different religions to resolve societal issues in Selangor. It is due to the fact that communication is the key for unravel any misunderstandings, hatred, or let's say racial what we call prejudice. So this is the thing that for me maybe some of the aspect that it is not giving a full attention or does not given a fair share in what we call ethnic relationship or let alone what we call societal relationship. So for me, the basic thing is understanding in this for this particular discussion is how to understand the sociological or socio-political and historical perspective of our society. Yeah, because we are actually still a young nation building, and of course, when you talk about nation state, we are more successful in creating a state rather than we still not there in creating a nation. So we can consider this thing as a work in progress. But in order to understand what we are discussing here from the perspective that have been given as the title for the discussion, we need to understand the idea that how religion is actually the core of our culture. Most of the time, in Malaysia, we try to associate our culture with religion or vice versa. And most of them are playing a very vital role in creating of our foundation of thought, foundation of culture. Most of probably we can simply say all aspects related to life up to the moment where it is associated with our civilization. How the ideas of Malay is Muslim, Muslim is Malay is part and parcel of Malay civilization up to the moment where we institutionalize it in our constitution, which is considered in Arab, there is no such thing. Maybe Arab is a Muslim or Muslim is Arab in their constitution. So anyhow, this is our Malaysian way. So we need to respect and we need to understand it further. And of course, when you talk about civilization per se, it is always talk about cultural refinement, how refinement of thought may lead to cultural appreciation, and this cultural appreciation will lead to more understanding on how the differences between us and others may create a different attitudes and different value. The most important thing that the so-called differences is part and parcel that make this life very beautiful. Yeah, because we can simply say that multiracial, multicultural, or multi-religious society is a phenomenon in everywhere in the world. You can simply see the idea of European nation, for example, that using the what we call embracing, let's say, the multiculturalism as part and parcel of the European lifestyle or the part and parcel of European society. So we can simply say that this is a global phenomenon. The most important thing is how you manage this. When we say you manage the social pluralism that constitute each and every modern state that exists in this God green earth. So the challenge here is, of course, how to create a harmony, peace, and positive interaction between races and between religions and spiritual culture, because most of the time, this creation of harmony, peace, and positive interaction always requires a prudent and respectful approach, which is vice versa, need some kind of everyday defined conceptual as well as the authority defined conceptual, because it is top down as well as bottom-up process. So everybody knows the effect that it is not addressed properly and prudently, it will definitely become a hindrance to the process of building harmony and unity to our people. So first thing first, we need to understand what kind of Malaysian plurality and ethnic diversity that exists in our world. Of course, we are always embracing that plurality is a fact and it must be accepted and always acknowledged by all. Yeah, this is divine law. This is something natural. Yeah, it does not. It can be changed and impossible to be changed actually. And of course, when you talk about ethnic diversity, it always leads to cultural diversity. So when you talk about cultural diversity, it is an asset. Yeah, because it is not something become a liability to each and everybody. If we manage it wisely, it's going to create diversified culture, it will create identity, it will create melting pot that may create what we call a good amalgamation or good assimilation that later on create some kind of diversification that lead to prosperous and harmonious relationship. And that's why most of the time we cannot say that ethnic diversity or differences is an excuse for each and everybody to be hostile. This is the thing that we need to understand in Malaysian concept. Talking about this, of course, we need to celebrate and need to be proud that this ethnic diversity and plurality is the pride of our people. Yeah, we can simply say it is part and parcel of our culture. This is what Malaysia is all about. So embracing this thing is something that need to that everybody is supposed to be celebrated. And of course, the most important thing from this celebration of a diversification or ethnic diversity, it must lead to national unity. Yeah, because national unity need some kind of comprehensive framework that must be able to be translated as well as give the general picture as how the complexity of Malaysian society or the Malaysian plural society can be constituted, because we cannot be like others. Yeah, people say that we need to create sekolah apa tu satu aliran. Yeah, we cannot because we are not others. Yeah, although this is some kind of thing that may help us in the process of national integration, but I believe that if we go with our own way and we manage to handle it properly, yeah, make it like everyday discussion as well as authority, top-down authority defined enforced by the government, we can create our this thing, because this is something that we consider as work as progress. And of course, the final thing is we need to create our national unity with fundamental values. Yeah, what are the fundamentals value that help creating our national unity? Of course, this justice, acceptance, and tolerance. Yeah, and this justice, acceptance, and tolerance must be always maintained within the framework of the constitution as well as our national ideology, which is the Rukun Negara. Because everything is there, we need to enforce it. Yeah, and we need a strong political will, especially when we're talking about authority-defined framework that coming from top down. These are the things, the ingredient that we need to have, or how to translate our diversity into national unity, that we're supposed to say that this is Malaysian way. So why we need a dialogue is a thing that we need to look properly in this particular discussion. Because I was given 20 minutes to think. So let's say these are the things that we need to focus. I think everybody knows that ethnic conciliation is the best solution, yeah, for our nature of the state. Yeah, because highlighting the nature of religion that promote peace, tolerance, and cooperation may be something that very heavy to be understand. Yeah, because the nature of religion, yeah, may be considered as supposed to be united, but somehow in Malaysian political setting, it happened in the other way around. Yeah, we can simply say that agama that's supposed to united people, supposed to create mutual understanding, dia tidak jadi begitu ya. Dia menjadi something that's supposed to be sensitive. Although it is everything is there ya, everything have been institutionalized. They're supposed to be something that clear to everybody. But somehow it is in practical things it is not happen. It is not something that's supposed to be considered as religious thing. So one thing that good, as Prof. Manso said before, yeah, the nature of our ethnic relations in Malaysia were always in stable tension. In Malay, we call tegang tapi stabil. Yeah, we are so mesmerized with the idea that forwarded by Prof. Manso just now. He says that Malaysia prefer tongue wagging rather than parang wielding. So meaning we are not up there like Sri Lanka, where the circle is a bit tedious lah kita kata. So we can simply say stable tension itu is there, but we need to remember that the idea of stable tension, it's still easy for anyone to play racial sentiment, and of course this tension can be escalated to crisis, or up to the moment it's going to be the critical one. Maybe we are coming to conflict. So people at the same time may manipulate this thing, yeah, because there is always an individual or any parties who try to nodding in murky waters ataupun menangguk di air terus by using this thing. And that's why by having this thing, we need to constantly have a dialogue. We need to have constantly have a seminars or wachanas in order to clear the things, to let the stable tension is not escalated to the negative things that maybe jeopardize our ethnic relationship. And of course, we need this healthy and constructive dialogue simply because we need to reduce prejudice. Because this is, for me, considered to be on the basis of these three reasons that I may think about. Number one, of course, there is always a need for an explanation, especially from a religious perspective, on the principle of diversity to the society, because we try to give a better understanding on the importance of religion in ensuring unity and harmonious life, so that this thing can be passed to our future generation. As YB Ghana says just now, the problem is our race relationship were better in our forefathers era, but not in this nowadays, or in this generational era. And that's why we need this thing, especially from the religious people or religious expert, just to simply to clear and constantly giving them some reminders on how important this thing, and how we need a constructive dialogue between inter-religious experts in order to have some kind of unity and harmonious life. And especially this thing can be passed to our future generation. And number two, we need this thing in terms of academic discourses. Why? Because we need to give the clear, of course, when we talk about academic discourses, this is not actually in terms of maybe higher education or higher institution. We must start at the basic level in the maybe secondary school, yeah, because we don't have much discourse on this thing, rather than we are making it in a very informal ways. Yeah, we are trying to make it in a very popular approach. Yeah, maybe during the momentous or significant national days, so on and so forth. But we don't have this constantly in terms of national academic syllabus or co-curriculum activities that may promote this thing to the young generations. And of course, finally, I believe that we need to have a constant interfaith dialogue, because this may prolong the continuity of ethnic relations, especially when we are always talking about how we find our point of ponder by promoting unity, harmony, tolerance, mutual respect, yeah, that always been preached by our different religions, yeah, and how these things may suit our plural society in Malaysian context. So these three maybe will maybe the ideas on how we are going to have or the need for the necessity of dialogue between different religions. Yeah, and of course, when you talk about dialogue, we try to reduce misunderstanding, because when you talk about religious belief, most of the time it always leads us to controversial discussions. Yeah, which is not only this controversial thing may encourage conflict, but also start to embark or to develop conflict. So by allowing this conflict and this tension to continue, yeah, we afraid that maybe the so-called religious belief may be turned into some kind of form of extremism and fanaticism. And of course, when this thing happen, we afraid that it will going to diminish our core of the society, which is multi-religious, multi-ethnic, and harmonious multicultural society. And we put jeopardize and everything that we have built. Yeah, and of course, when you talk about religious conflict, yeah, although religious conflict may be resolved in many methodologies, yeah, but we need to emphasize that it is the individual and the religious community, yeah, that may play a vital role to determine whether this methodology in reducing religious conflict can be considered as successful or not. If they don't play a vital role in these particular actions, yeah, we may pay a greater price on having ethnic clash or ethnic maybe ethnic conflict, so on and so forth. So to close our my discussion in this particular evening, we need to embrace that the concept of mutual acceptance in Malaysia is actually our main recipe for unification in multiracial society. Yeah, I always like this quotation given by Dr. Anis Yusal in one of his talk that I have attended 2 years back. He says that dalam konteks Malaysia, suka atau tidak, kita tidak boleh pilih. Yeah, in Malaysian context, whether we like it or not, we can't choose. Yeah, this is Malaysia. That is the fact that we need to accept. So meaning it is something that over the world and we cannot choose it. Yeah, this is something maybe considered historically that which is, although it is not natural and forced, but this is somehow the point that creating our modern Malaysian society. So this is something that we cannot choose. The thing that we can do is we need to manage it properly. And of course, when we talk about managing properly, it is something that need to be considered as everyday defined action as well as authority defined action. It is top down as well as the bottom up action. And we need to remember that any ethnic clash, fight or riot do no good to everybody. Yeah, not to the Malay, not to the Chinese, not to the Indian, and not to Sabah and Sarawak. Semua orang rugi. Ya, meaning tidak ada siapa yang beruntung. Jadi berlebihan, ya, menajamkan sentimen perkauman ini akan merugikan semua pihak. So meaning we need to learn this fact, and also we need to learn from our history as well. This is the fact that we need to understand, and we need to pass this thing to our younger generation. If it's not, yeah, we are not going to create longevity that we're supposed to have. And of course, it will ruin the other things that we work on for the near future. Number 3, ethnic differences in Malaysia must be understood from the aspect of history, demographic, and geography. Yeah, not only from inter-ethnic, but also intra-ethnic. Because we need to see sometimes there is a perspective that orang ataupun kaum itu sendiri tidak memahami bangsa dia sendiri. Ya, bukan kita kata nak memahami bangsa lain, tetapi bangsa dia sendiri pun dia tidak faham. It's like macam how in Malaysia we always associated, di Malaysia ni hanya ada 3, Melayu, Cina, India, tetapi they forget that there is a Sabah and Sarawak, which is very different in their historical perspective, demographic perspective, and of course geographical perspective. Because the problem is some ethnic group which is from the same ethnicity or same group, yeah, will not necessarily understand their own fully. So we need to address this thing as well. And of course, we need some work to do on this particular thing. Then this also affect that race and religion is inseparable. Agama dan bangsa ini agak sukar untuk dipisahkan, especially when we always try to identify ethnic by religion. Ya, Melayu, Islam, Islam, Melayu, ataupun seperti mana yang lain lah. So there is the problem with definition when our socio-political aspect of life, when we talk about our politics, our constitution, our institutional establishment, always associate race and religion as an inseparable. Although it is not a problem, but somehow when we go further or we try to make it wider in terms of political, constitution, and institutional establishment perspective, it is very dangerous. Ya, because this is something yang kalau kita tidak kikis dia, dan kalau kita masih lagi boleh mengatakan konteks ini adalah sesuatu yang inseparable, memang kita sukar untuk mencapai yang kita panggil sebagai pembinaan bangsa or whatsoever. Tetapi dalam konteks ini juga barangkali dia menyukarkan pengurusan itu sendiri. Ya, and of course when you talk about this thing, there is an urgency for us to highlight religion as unification factor, not separate or divisible factor. Sebab agama ini sepatutnya dia menyatukan berbanding dia memisahkan. Ya, tetapi yang berlaku sebaliknya bila kita bercakap tentang agama, kita always melihat daripada perspektif aku dan dia, bukan perspektif daripada kita. Ya, so my final discussion will be this thing. Ya, when you talk about unity per se, it is something considered as unmeasurable. It is very difficult for us to measure unity. Tetapi mungkin kita boleh kata unity can be monitored, because we always say that unity is supposed to be work in progress. Yeah, it is not a destination. It is not a final destination. It is a journey actually. So it is something yang sepatutnya menjadi sebagai sesuatu yang sentiasa dipantau, kerana it is difficult for us to get rid of things that we consider as part and parcel, or we always talk about our primordial element. Ya, kita lahir dengan begitu, kita juga sudah ditakdirkan begitu. Jadi yang penting adalah bagaimana kita melihat konsep ini tidak menjadi sesuatu yang klise, tidak diangkat menjadi satu naratif yang bersifat mantra saja, tetapi dia benar-benar diangkat sebagai suatu yang bersifat struktural di dalam masyarakat kita. Kerana apa yang dilihat dalam konteks negara itu, kita bukan mencari kesatuan ataupun kesamaan, tetapi kita lebih melihat ini dalam perspektif kesepaduan. We try to have a cohesion in diversity rather than unity in diversity, and that's why when we talk about this thing, it's supposed to be monitored, not supposed to be measured. So by this point, I'll conclude my discussion. So thank you very much for the
okay, terima kasih
as well as
Tuan Mujibu. Thanks a lot. That's a very dense and very heavy sharing and discussion by Mr. Mujibu. Really appreciate it. I think before I go to Brother Shakrid after this, can I just get a quick feedback from YB Ghana? Because Mr. Mujibu has, I think, many times mentioned about the need for a top-down approach in instilling unity, while something that he called as a authority-defined effort in terms of unity. And I understand that YB Ghana is a co-chairman of the Limas, the Lima Agama in Selangor. Perhaps YB Ghana can share your experience in how being in a special committee that manage the 5 religions in Selangor, and how the position can be used to promote better unity in Selangor.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Akmal. Honestly, being co-chairman, we are actually in the beginning of our government in 2008 with a new aspiration. We thought we want to settle these so-called temples land issues. So we come up with at the time we call it Jawatan Kuasa Hal Ehwal Selain Islam. Then later it's become Limas, and is Ribi, Rumah Ibadah Bukan Islam. Then so finally we come up with the idea of Limas. This is here this term. Honestly, it will be inclusive of all the land office, PBT, pihak berkuasa tempatan, and also inclusive of JAIS will be there, and then Hinduism, Hindu council, two Hindu councils will be there, and also Christianity, Buddhism, and also Sikhism. Yeah, so all the representative will be there. So whenever we discuss a particular place of worship, here we are more concerned about, because our authority is limited to non-Islamic place of worships. So even then, so how to harmonize when we want to approve or dislocated the particular place of worships, or we want to enforcement on the place of worships, how to we can come up with the common ground, agreed with together, how we want to be place it much harmonized way. That's how we did. So far, honestly, in Selangor, we achieved our goals considerably very well. We did manage to gazette place of non-Islamic religious place of worships pretty well. And also we need some of the places that we need the enforcement. Yes, we do, because we have to be see the ground that need to be better for everybody. There are so the kind of scenarios. But in any events, what's make us special is we discuss just now, like what our Professor Mujibu said, how he shares his ideas, the communication. Through the communications, through the dialogue, through the discussion, we manage to solve issues here, not through the authoritarian way. I think this answered your...
Yeah. Thank you, Baby Gana, for that short sharing. Okay, let's move on to our next speaker. He's very known in the among the Malay community as well as just in Malaysia. Mr. Shakirit Kakula Govinji is one of the leading and most popular speakers on comparative religion in Malaysia. He was the panel on TV Al Hijrah's Harmony Dialogue, Astro Oasis Al Ustaz, at Ikim.fm, National FM, etc. He converted to Islam 25 years ago, and he conducted talks and workshops on Islam at churches, temples, viharas, etc. in over 20 countries, including England, Scotland, Wales, Japan, Hong Kong, Australia, New Zealand, Uganda, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Botswana, South Africa, Tanzania, India, Sri Lanka, Bahrain, and others. His friendly, sincere, unassuming, and always humble way befits his main purpose in life, to explain Islam to anyone in the most direct and simple way possible, hence making clear Islam's great message of peace and harmony. Mr. Shakri is the recipient of Maulidur Rasul National Award in 2012, National Award as Malaysian Da'i Revert Category 2015, National Reverted Muslim Award by JAKIM in 2010, State of Selangor Reverted Muslim Award 2011, State of Perak Da'i Award 2011, and State of Selangor Da'i Award 2013. He is currently the president of Global Unity Network, a movement which strives to create a knowledgeable society living in peace and harmony without prejudice. I also would like maybe Mr. Shakir could comment on one point made by Mr. Mujibu earlier about religion being a unification factor instead of a separation factor in Malaysia and in Selangor specifically. Without further ado, let's welcome Brother Shakir to the floor. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Brother Akbal. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. May peace and blessings of Almighty God be with you all. I'm very honored to be here together with everyone, and thank you very much for the sharing earlier. I learned a lot from you, and I hope I can share some of my experience and it will benefit us all. Thank you. Okay, going back to the topic itself, the importance or the necessity of having dialogue between religions in solving issues on society. This is very important, actually. It's very important. And let us look into why do we have societal issues, actually. in my humble opinion, I would say most of these problems and issues are actually because of misunderstanding, misconceptions, presumptions, prejudice between one another. And the best way to get rid of all this is to understand one another. And how do we understand one another? Which better way than having dialogues, having conversation, having interactions, having engagement between one another? Okay, and normally when we say we have a dialogue and so on, is so that we can give birth to a society which is tolerance between one another, which is good. We need to be tolerant between one another. But do not stop there. What does tolerance actually means? Tolerance, generally, it would mean, I actually don't like what you do, but I will just tolerate it. That is tolerance. But we must move on from tolerance into acceptance. We need to accept one another, whoever we are, for what we are, accept one another. But the thing is, we can accept one another when we actually do not really know one another. So from acceptance, we must move forward into respect, mutual respect. Now, when it comes to respect, respect is not to be demanded, respect should be earned. Therefore, I cannot respect another person if I do not know who the other person is. So for me to respect the other person, I need to understand who the other person is. So here, respect means to know each other. We need to understand one another. Usually, we want people to understand our religion. We want people to understand our customs. We want people to understand the do's and don'ts in our community. But do we actually take the effort in order to understand people from other faith and other religion, which is equally important? Let me give you an example. For example, like, okay, I'm going to be quite frank and honest here. Normally, as Muslims, okay, when we invite people to a gathering, a kenduri, a jamuan makan, for example, and we invite our neighbors who may be from other faith, we invite our colleagues from our working place, which may be from other faith, other religion. And many a time, when we serve food to them, okay, we are not sensitive about what other food they can take or they cannot take. Let me give you an example. We have Hindu neighbors, Hindu friends, for example, coming to our function. And Indians, me being an Indian myself, okay, as what Brother Mujibu said earlier, okay, masuk Islam is not masuk Melayu. But unfortunately, we always tie between the religion and the race together. So I'm a Muslim, but I'm not a Malay. I'm an Indian. I was born as an Indian and I will die as an Indian. So masuk Islam does not really mean masuk Melayu. Okay, now, me being an Indian, okay, bila time makan, orang India ni pantang satu perkara. Dia pantang jumpa kari. Kalau jumpa kari, dia mesti tambah nasi. So we invite our Hindu neighbor to come to our place. All right? Okay. And he's taking the rice and he smells curry. All right. Take more rice in at once. And the moment he wants to take the rice, it is a beef curry. Now he doesn't take beef curry. So they might eat with vegetables. Now this vegetable is also mixed with beef. In the end, he may end up eating rice with belacan or just taking fruits, for example. But the point I want to make is, even when this happens, he doesn't make sour face. Now, let's change the story. Being a Muslim, for example, we are invited by our colleague who is not a Muslim. And he offers us the food and drinks. Everything is halal. Everything is halal. And suddenly, they bring in baby barbecue. Okay, they bring in pork. And they put this pork in the middle. What is the general reaction of the Muslims? Many of us, we will frown. Okay, mulut kita jadi muncung, lebih panjang daripada cencurut. Muka kita masam. Dalam hati kita menyumpah, celaka punya orang, dah tahu kita tak boleh makan babi, dihidang juga babi punya orang. So what I want to say is, if you want people to respect you, we need to learn how to respect other people first. It must be mutual. And the Prophet also teach us, your faith is not complete unless you love for your brothers or your sisters what you love for yourself. And this is respect. And this is what we need to have understanding between one another until we have respect between one another and we understand one another. Okay, not only about beef. Some Chinese, okay, especially those who worship Kuan Yin, they may not take beef. Some Indians, some Chinese, they may be vegetarian. And some vegetarian, they may not eat onion or garlic. So if we are sensitive enough to know who our neighbors are, who our colleagues are, and we prepare food, especially for their diet, that will be good. That itself is having a good bonding between one another. Now speaking about interfaith, okay, interfaith dialogue. Speaking about interfaith dialogue, there are many different types of interfaith dialogue, various. And I will just summarize into 4 types. One of the interfaith dialogue that we could have is the peacemaking dialogue, where we want to promote peaceful and harmonious coexistence. And when we say peaceful and harmonious coexistence, unity in diversity, unity is not necessarily uniformity. We don't have to be the same between one another, but we understand and we appreciate and we cherish one another. That's important. The other dialogue that we can have is actually a partnership dialogue, where we can have collaboration between different religious groups into common good. And this is actually normally to improve the world around us, especially the economy, the health, the education, especially now with this pandemic of COVID-19, a lot of people are suffering out there. How can we collaborate between one another? And when we want to give assistance, we do not give assistance to only our own. Give assistance regardless whatever his or her race or beliefs are. It should be inclusive and not exclusivity. And number 3, the type of dialogue we could have is also polemical dialogue, where we discuss issues. But these dialogues normally are closed-door dialogues, behind closed doors. And you invite people who are in the authority, people who can actually contribute. And in this polemical dialogue, we should not be selfish. We should never represent only our religion or only our race. We should be inclusive. Yes, our focus is our religion. Our focus is our race, for example. But in that dialogue, we must also see what is mutually beneficial for others. Sometimes in these polemical issues, people from other faith, they may address certain issues. And you should not shut them down. Oh, that is not to be discussed. No, you have no right to discuss this. No, this is the platform to discuss any issues that you have. And whatever issues that are brought by our brothers and sisters from other faith, look into it, analyze it. If they are genuine, assist them, help them, because their problem is also our problem. But if we think they are wrong, it should not be that, then explain to them why we think it should not be that. End of the day, there may be a lot of things we can resolve, but not everything. But whatever we cannot resolve, it's okay. At least we understand one another. At least we know where we are coming from, each other is coming from. At least agree to disagree respectfully. And the 4th type of dialogue is the cognitive dialogue, which is more discussion of intellectual, discussion about theology issues, more academic. And when you speak about theology, it may bring comparative religion. It must be done with respect. Religion is very sensitive. And in the Quran, Almighty God reminds us in Surah An'am chapter 6, verse number 108, for example, do not revile what they worship other than Allah, lest they may revile Allah in return out of ignorance. So we, in having any type of dialogue, we should never insult anybody's religion. However, having said this, criticizing a community which doesn't follow their own religion should not be taken as condemning another religion. For an example, in my dialogues, for example, when people criticize Muslims for bad behavior, so something bad, I will never defend that bad Muslim. Wrong is wrong. It doesn't matter who does it. Wrong is wrong. Even if it is a Muslim who does wrong, I would admit, yes, that is wrong. But Islam does not teach that. Because you would have black sheep in every community, in every religious adherence, there would be black sheep. That is normal. But they would defend just because they are your own religion, they're your own race, they're your own NGO, your own organization, your own school of thought. No, be just. That is very important. And in dialogues, avoid debates. Because in our modern day today, debate is understood to be winning and losing. Nobody like to lose. We always want to win. But having dialogue is not about winning. Please, never have dialogue to win, but have dialogue to understand what is the truth. Jangan dalam perbincangan kita mencari kemenangan, tetapi mencari kebenaran, the truth. But do not impose your truth into others. So, sentiasa kita bersikap secara inklusif, bukan secara eksklusif. Itu akan banyak menyelesaikan masalah kita. Dan dalam dialog, perlu ada sesi soal jawab. There should be question and answer. Lots of question and answer session. And during our program, during Q&A, we would just put one rule, only one condition for Q&A. Only one rule. And that rule is no censorship. You can ask any questions. You can even criticize Islam. You can even tell me why you think Islam is wrong. It's okay. Feel free. Spill it out, whatever you have in your heart. And whatever we are able to answer, answer them. But if you do not know the answer, then don't pretend. Jangan goreng, nanti hangus. Kalau tak tahu, cakap tak tahu. Your question is a good question, but I do not know the answer yet. Let me get the answer and I will come back to you later. So with this Q&A, we will promote a lot of understanding, and God willing, we can actually resolve a lot of issues. Now, very quickly, permit me to share some of the activities that we have done. I hope this will help actually. Okay, let me just share the screen for a while. Okay, interfaith dialogue. During having interfaith dialogue, let it be inclusive, people from other faith. And normally we will generalize the Chinese, for example. Chinese are Buddhists, which is not necessarily true. Of course, Chinese in Malaysia, a lot of them, they practice Buddhism with Taoism, with Confucianism. But a lot of the temples we have outside are not all necessarily a Buddhist temple. It can also be a Taoist temple, for example, a Baha'i, for example. Include everybody in our dialogue. Let's understand one another. And in our organization, we will actually invite speakers from other faith to come to our organization and talk to the Muslims about their religion. Because we want to understand what you believe, what are the do's and don'ts, what are your customs, what are your adat, how can we interact with one another better. And they return favor and they will invite us to present on Islam in their premises, which is good. Dialogue Harmony in TV Al-Hijrah. There have been more than 30 episodes discussing various issues in TV Al-Hijrah. But unfortunately, I believe not many people are aware about this. Interfaith engagement is very, very important, regardless who they are. Engage with people. And among the things that we have done, Alhamdulillah, praise to Almighty God, in the year 2015, we organized in a small scale a breaking of fast between the imam and the padri, imam and the priest. And during this, a lot of issues were resolved. A small group, we invited imam, but among the imam, we also included people from Jais, which the Christian community didn't know. But among the priests, we have also included people from DUMC Church, for example, from Bible Society in Malaysia, which the Muslim representatives didn't know. But when they break fast, they sit together, they get to know with one another. For example, where do you stay? How was the road just now? Any traffic jam? Or where do you work? Tuan Haji, I work in Jais. Lu kerja Jais kah? Ya, saya kerja Jais. Saya pegawai sana. Lu punya orang lah tangkap saya. Sitting together, they got to know one another, and from there they become friends. So in future, any issues, don't go to social media, don't go to the press, but let us resolve it together. This is Hari Raya gathering, leaders of various community, from Buddhist, Taoist, Sikhism, Baha'i, Hindu, Christians. Let's come together, let's talk with one another. And in this gathering, we also invite the officers from various Islamic agencies, from Jais, from Ma'is, from Jawi, from Mawid, from Jakim, from Yadim, from Jabatan Mufti, for example. Let's come together, get to know one another. If there is any issue in future, you already have the contact number, call one another, resolve it amicably. And many a time when they know each other, they themselves will be more careful in their own conduct, because they know they have friends on the other side who is always watching them. 2015 again, from what I understand, is the first time in the history of Malaysia, a meeting between Archbishop of Kuala Lumpur and the Mufti of Wilayah Persekutuan. And since that event, praise to God, there's been a lot of mutual meeting between both groups. We conduct classes for Islam, Islam 101, for non-Muslims, not to convert them. Come as you are, to understand, to learn, to increase your knowledge. Some of them, yes, in the class, they are very vocal. Okay, some of them can be very aggressive, but never mind, it's okay. Let them express themselves. But with proper understanding, we can solve a lot of problems. We should reach out to the community of various faith. Unity Friendly Outreach, which we branded as UFO. And in our organization, we train the Muslims to learn other religions and to be the ambassadors for interfaith. We have courses like FBI, Fundamentals and Basics of Interfaith. We have got training sessions in creating interfaith activities, CIA. Also training on KGB, khusus gempak berceramah, so they can advocate interfaith relationship with people. But not only they should listen from a Muslim speaker, for example. If you want to know about Christianity, go and listen from the Christian. We bring them to the church, have dialogue with the Christian priest. Let the Christian priest explain to you about Christianity. Similarly, we go to the Hindu temple as well. And the people that you see, they are also from Jais, for example. We have conducted training for people from Jais. So if people say Jais is very exclusive, Jais is not understanding, it's not true. And a lot of good relationship we have with the Buddhist organizations, for example, and every time we go to the church, the temple, the vihara, gurdwara, and so on, we will ask them, please serve food. Because some Muslims, I understand, they will not eat in a non-Muslim places. But we will make sure that the food, everything is halal. And we will take the initiative to explain to them what does halal actually means in Islam. It does not mean tak ada babi, automatic halal. No, there is more to it. Take this opportunity to explain. Jais, okay, Dawah Chief, let's build religious understanding. But this type of news is not very much promoted. Visits, okay, this happened just about a week after the uneventful incident in Sri Lanka, where the Christian church were attacked. And that was also just about a couple of weeks after the incident in New Zealand, for example. Then we get this media coverage. But we have been doing this for the past 20 years. Now we need to promote this kind of activities more. I'm not saying only from my organization. There are many other organizations also doing similar work. We should actually promote them. Okay. And last, I would just say, let's work together. So brothers and sisters, that's all the sharing I will have now. But I just want to end with one more point. Not only interfaith dialogue, but we should also promote intrafaith dialogue. We need dialogue within the same community, the same adherence. What are the issues we are facing? At least we have a proper understanding when we engage with people from other faith. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Shakirit, for that very insightful sharing, as well as the sharing of pictures that we think just greatly improve further what he's trying to say. I think the audience may have some question they would like to ask
Brother
to
Akmal, Brother Akmal,
sorry.
sorry, brother. I actually forgot your question earlier to comment
Okay.
on Mr. Mujibu. His question was about.
Religion as unification factor.
I agree with him. I agree
Yeah.
totally. I agree with him. Religion is never a problem. The problem is when you have lack in understanding of your religion or misuse of the religion. And how to avoid that? Have a proper understanding of religion. Religion is actually solution to your problem. I totally agree with Encik Mujibu. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brother Shakirit. Yeah. Before we go to the Q&A by the audience, let's hear from our final discussant, Mr. Edin Hu. He is a poet, writer, translator, and journalist. He is the executive editor at the news site The Vibes, overseeing the culture and lifestyle, news features, and the Southeast Asia desk. He is also the founder of Pusaka, one of the region's leading cultural centers, and has worked intimately with masters of the ritual and traditional arts, researching aspects of oral transmission, cultural and religious politics, as well as aspects of ritual in traditional theatre. He is a regular contributor of comment, journalism, and literature to leading news and arts platforms around the world. Without further ado, I would like Mr. Edin to take the floor and share his thoughts. Let's all welcome him.
Thank you. And peace and blessings to everyone gathered here today, especially my brother Shah Keret, whom I've not seen for a very long time, although we have shared a platform on many occasions to discuss some pretty contentious things, or contentious to always the powers that be, but it doesn't seem to be very contentious to the people we speak to, who are basically the Akar Umbi and the Rakyat, yang agaknya lah mempunyai minda dan fikiran yang jauh lebih terbuka daripada mereka yang memimpin kita kadang-kadang, ya. Dan one of the things I'm quite interested to know is why we are having this dialogue here now in English. Sebenarnya harus diperhalusi dan diadakan di dalam bahasa Melayu sebab ia kena turun pada akar umbi, ya. I find this quite a paradox that whenever we talk about interreligious dialogue, we are continuing to have it in the English language. And I think I can explain why this is. Because there are attempts again by mereka yang memimpin kita untuk kadang-kadang memencilkan bahasa Melayu daripada satu perdebatan yang jauh lebih luas, lebih besar dan merangkumi semua, ya. Seakan kemurnian itu tidak boleh diganggulah dengan membicara tentang kepercayaan atau iman orang lain, ya. And I don't see how we can actually make many advances interreligious faith dialogue if we continue to have it in English language that only can be conducted by a certain elite group of people. In fact, interreligious dialogue, I believe, should actually be dominated and go right down to the ground to villages and kampungs and B40 areas and should be conducted in the national language where everybody can participate. Having said that, let me not belabor the point. Yes, I wish first to address the very brilliant presentation by Professor Mansour. I mean, that kind of deconstructionist approach, that kind of structuralist approach provides a lot of clarity, basically, in where religion exists in our interplay within the communities today, where the problems are, where the instrumentalization are, and where are all the tembok lah that continue to make this an issue that remains contentious. However, I am not so pessimistic as many of my other liberal elite English-speaking community and friends who always seem to be in a state of moral panic that somehow our society is collapsing and we are going into some kind of great theocratic state where the rights of everybody is going to be deprived. I think that is a total nonsense, and that really comes from how our society is becoming increasingly fragmented, not according to race, but according to class. And I think class divisions are becoming very, very clear. And class knows no racial distinctions. It only knows its own comforts and its own privileges. Yeah. Let me start by saying that if you go to just about every bandar or kadang-kadang even in some pretty provincial places, you will find what I call harmony squares everywhere. If you go to Malacca, you will find one of the oldest Ganesha temples here, and the Catholic Church constructed in the 16th century just across the road. A Kuan Yin temple built maybe about 100 years later down the road, and then of course the very beautiful and resplendent Masjid Kapitan, I can't remember, of Malacca there. If you go to a place like Raob, you will find a whole row of there's the Central Mosque, Raob Central Mosque, and then a whole row of temples, churches, gurdwaras, and things like that, all across the main road of Raob. And you will find decked on the hill above the various burial grounds of the various faiths, one next to each other. Yeah. Why this question of interreligious, interfaith dialogue has become a matter of urgency now, when we are a community and we are a country that has practiced this kind of coexistence for centuries, is something that is of great concern to me. So what I'm trying to say is that the issue of religion as being a possibly fragmentary and conflicted zone is a very, very modern one. It has very clear political contours. It has very clear historical contours. It's also part of the whole process of conditioning that has been happening after a certain time, from the 1980s in particular. I think it's very reflective of what I think is the main danger in our society today, which is a culture of victimology atau satu budaya kemangsaan di antara setiap masyarakat. Each community believes itself to be a victim of the other. That is not a problem of religion. That is not a problem of culture. That is a power struggle that is happening in what I call the power politics of domination. And that takes on penjelmaan sebagai agama, bangsa, bahasa, dan sebagainya. Anything can become. The word for tin can even become one of the most explosive cultural issues that we have today, irrespective of whether you drink or don't drink. And I don't drink. I'm a teetotaler, and I don't drink for religious purposes. But what I find is the manipulation even of a particular kind of word, and instrumentalization of a particular kind of word as somehow reflective of one community's need to insult another. I find that totally surreal, actually. And this is where I think interreligious dialogue needs to happen very frequently. It has to happen also very seriously, and it has to happen at a very, very localized level. And what is amazing about our country is that we actually have all these channels that can perpetuate or bring this conversation to the people. The first principle of our Rukun Negara is kepercayaan kepada Tuhan. My father was one of those who drew up this Rukun Negara. And I had asked him a question once. I said, why do you create such a problematic thing as religion and make it the first principle? And he basically explained that the Rukun Negara had to be rooted in our society. And the one principle that bound all members of our society was a belief in God. Yeah. and that can be used. That faith and that kepercayaan can be used as a channel for dialogue to have a very elevated ya, yang tinggi, yang luhur, perbicaraan yang luhur tentang nilai-nilai kemasyarakatan orang Malaysia. Tetapi as we know with the Rukun Negara, tidak ada iltizam politik sebenarnya, ya. And what started out as a very, very interesting experiment of going to the ground to various parts. That's how I first saw the country when I was 4 years old and 5 years old and 6 years old, following my father on these Rukun Negara programs and getting to know kampongs and, you know, mula fahasih dalam bahasa Melayu, kagum dengan bahasa Melayu aku, ayah aku dan sebagainya, and gaining a real intimacy with a larger country beyond my own provincial self. These things can actually be done so that we are constantly having interfaith, the dialogue at a very elite level for me is tak masuk akal lah sekarang ni. We've been doing this for 40 years. Interfaith dialogue is not something new. It has been going on for 40 and 50 years. The Selangor state government can ask their leader Anwar Ibrahim, for example, to talk about how ABIM, the Malaysian Youth Movement, first started this project of interfaith dialogue, talking to people like Tan Chi Kun, the Methodist Church, the Catholic Church, and creating this culture. But 40 and 50 years on from this, we have not progressed very much from what was discussed then, which is about mutual coexistence and all these niceties about mutual respect. They are not unimportant. They are very, very important and asas, tetapi we have to elevate the debate. Earlier, Professor Mujibur made a very interesting point. He said the purpose of religion is a good life or something to that nature. Let us be very clear. The purpose of religion in every faith is salvation. Yeah, salvation is the purpose of every faith and of religion. And it's not the salvation of your father or your mother, it is the salvation of you. That's a very important principle to understand, because what that does, and this is very clear in Islam, and I know in my introduction, nobody said that I am actually a formal student of the Islamic faith and of comparative religion. My first degree was in it, and I've continued to pursue it even at my attempt at a doctoral level. I regard Islam as having as the intellectual foundations upon which I build my own thought, since I was taught that way. So I'm very clear about philosophical precepts and tenets within Islam and many other faiths. And why I talk about salvation is because I think there's one aspect of religion now that is very dangerous, and that is the aspect of the individual self and individual self's humility. And what we see in a lot of religious rhetoric today is a lot of sanctimoniousness, self-righteousness, and judgment. Yeah. So once we are aware that essentially we are within a faith to ensure our own salvation, then we are a lot more open with how we treat and regard everybody else. That's a very important philosophical premise to have before we advance into the field of interfaith dialogue. So that's a philosophical aspect. I think in Malaysia, what is very, very important yang kita harus menekan is that our inter-religious dialogue, and I participated in so many of them, I have actually observed so many of them, and I must say to a very great extent, they are very heartwarming and they're very reassuring, because I think at the very basic level, everybody in Malaysian society acknowledges that we are a pluralist and that we are a diverse society. Yeah, that's a very important acknowledgement to have. What I find difficult is that I don't think there is enough of an attempt to go beyond this very foundational acknowledgement to talk about things like history. I think history is a very important. Apakah pengalaman sejarah beragama di negara ini, termasuk agama Islam? For example, when you have the problem of temples, temple destructions and temple on illegal land and so on, You know, and kadang-kadang saya dengar hujah-hujah orang mengatakan, oh, kuil dibina sewenang-wenang dan sebagainya. Ia tidak dibina sewenang-wenang. Ia ada tempat dan pengalaman di situ. Seafield Temple, not Seafield, the other one in that was broken down by Toyo last time. You know, that is in Subang, but that it's 100-over-year-old temple, and it's very closely knit to the entire history of that area, which is a history of working class people who worked in rubber estates and plantations. And 100 years on, of course, the whole environment has changed, but it does not deny the existence and the historical legitimacy of that temple and the community around it. So I think we need to be informed by far greater things than just this gestural, we are a multiracial society and have to be nice to each other. I think it's very important also that we acknowledge very principal constitutional tenets, over there. I remember I speak to, for example, a lot of people in PAS, and they always talk about the need of Islam to be a protector within Islamic tradition. I don't deny that, and that's a very noble approach to understanding. But I keep reminding leaders from PAS that we do not live under a covenant. We live under a constitution. So the question of being a protector is really one that is quite aside from the principal thing, which is within a constitution, people have certain rights and they have a certain sense. That is what gives you your sense of belonging. Now this is becoming a crisis everywhere. This is not particular to Islam or Christianity, or if you look at India today, we're having that same kind of struggle and tussle. All the same, it's about the politics of domination. And I think what interreligious dialogue now needs to really grapple with is this question of what is domination politics, okay? Because the old consensus seems to have been broken. The old consensus that led to our constitution, that led to very clear ideas about what every community had rights to, who was which community had a special position, and renewed again after 1969 in the new economic policy and everything else. This new idea of renewing nationhood and its diversity, all that consensus has been broken by a kind of politik liar yang memang sudah menggila lah sekarang ni, ya. Politik kejar kerusi dan politik kuda liar and all this kind of thing. It's nothing to do with many of the things that people talk about, maruah bangsa, agama dan sebagainya. No, it's all about power. And so we have to locate our interreligious dialogue within such a setting. Saya sangat setuju dan sangat halus, ya, ungkapan kata Profesor Mansor tadi, bahawa budaya Melayu, bahasa Malaysia, bahasa Melayu, orang Melayu dengan kedudukan mereka, bahasa Melayu sebagai bahasa kebangsaan, dan hakikat yang lain, kemasyarakatan yang lain, sejarah Melayu dan sebagainya, menjadi payung kepada masyarakat yang lain, an umbrella. But my problem now is that the Malay consensus itself is very restive and broken. Who is the Malay today and what part of Malay history is legitimate and not legitimate, halal dan tidak haram, kita tidak tahu. Sebab pergelutan itu berlaku. I've worked in Kelantan for 30 years, yeah? And just earlier I was at a seminar on Keluarga Malaysia, the concept of Keluarga Malaysia. I gave an example of Kelantan, which is supposed to be regarded as such a purist and orthodox and traditional state. I've worked there for 30 years. It is to me one of the most liberated, open-minded, cosmopolitan societies that I've ever encountered anywhere in the world. But as I use a reference like the Manora, a tradition that is performed in the north of Kelantan, in the areas of Tumpat near the Sempadan, ya, nak masuk ke Siam Selatan tu. And Manora is very interesting because it's a very orthodox Buddhist, Thai Buddhist tradition that is mixed with Malay, Kelantan Malay storytelling and music. And it has been performed, of course, for hundreds of years. And it shows that the keluarga concept already exists in our traditional societies. The problem is when you have modern politics that it bans such a thing, mengharamkan sesuatu sebegitu, yeah, with all kinds of strange medieval kind of reasoning. So then you break the hold that history can instruct us on how we are supposed to menyuburi konsep keluarga ini. You know, it cannot come via that question of the authority becomes very important. I don't believe in a top-down or a bottom-up approach. I believe in a symbiosis between the two. And in a democratic society, the top listens to the bottom. Yeah, that is the flow of our authority in all our realms of life. I'm very, very concerned about certain things like freeloading preachers and things like that. You know, this is very much a tradition that has come from American televangelism that is now besieging us. I don't, you know, and then we are confronted with issues like Zakir Naik. I have no problem with Zakir Naik. I listen to a lot of what he says, and I consider him, for example, an expert on comparative religion. Here is a man who just has a very good memory. He can memorize a lot of things, but he doesn't seem to rationalize very much. But he does present to us a very, very important problem, because if he's sent back to India, he will be persecuted. So what do we actually do in such a situation like this? But to be able to discuss and to be able to contemplate such things in a very rational way, you must be very informed. Yeah. So masalah sekarang ni, I think for us to bring interreligious dialogue to a different level, we must have a great deal of knowledge. Yeah, we must have a great deal of knowledge. We need to do a lot of homework. We are not giving ourselves the opportunities to be the society that we are, because we are so close to each other. Understanding, which I totally agree with Brother Shah about this idea of tolerance that we are constantly praying. Tolerance is, and I take it what he described one step further. Tolerance is basically, I will put up with you until I no longer have to. Okay, but understanding is a completely different thing. I think it's time we open our ruang and make interreligious dialogue a lot more of a lived experience, like what Brother Shah is doing. People need to visit each other. They need to understand each other. They need to read the texts of each other. I sangat yakin lah dengan apa ni rakyat Malaysia pada keseluruhannya, pada umumnya. I give you an anecdote. During the period of pergelutan tentang kalimah Allah, I took my wayang kulit troupe for a tour to the United States. Yeah, 45-day tour to the United States. And mereka ini kumpulan ini memanglah orang kampung dari Aceh, Kelantan. So we went to Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia. And one of the landmarks that we visited was the Church of Dr. Martin Luther King. And before we went into the church, we had a bit of a discussion about what was the civil rights movement in the United States, and who Dr. Martin Luther King was, and that he was a preacher. And then we entered into his church, and we had a look around, and we saw the memorial. And when we left, one of my pakcik said, very jokingly, he said, "Tak masuk Christian pun." Okay, and everybody, all of them laughed. I just kind of smiled and we walked. So I seriously believe, saya yakin lah dengan masyarakat kita sebagai masyarakat yang waras dan yang sedar bahawa kita berada dalam satu konteks kepelbagaian, bukan saja hari ini, bukan saja esok, bukan saja semalam, tetapi selama beratusan tahun. Dan sekarang kita kena pulanglah kepada sumber-sumber, all these resources that are within our means in terms of language, in terms of faith, in terms of cultures and so on, and start really to menyuburi perbincangan kita dalam ruang agama, budaya dan sejarah. So I will stop there, and thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you, Brother Edin. for a very insightful sharing. Yeah, as part of the organizer, we take note of your comment, and yeah, we intend to have more of this dialogue and to reach out to the grassroots, and will be done in Bahasa Melayu. Thanks for that comment. Yeah, so now we have heard from all the discussion of based on the presentation made by Professor Mansoor earlier. Before I pose question to any of our discussion, perhaps the audience here would like to ask anything. Maybe we start with anyone who would like to turn on their mic and ask the question verbally to our speakers. Anyone? No.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes, Prof. Yes.
I raised my hand.
Please,
My
sorry.
question is to Edwin Koo. I really liked you describing about tolerance, and I made a comment that tolerance means that I like you, I hate you, but I will tolerate you. We need to be hospitable. But I want to go further than that. I've been here in Southeast Asia for 32 years. I was in Thailand for 30 years, and now 2 years in Malaysia. And I've been engaging in interreligious dialogue for most of my time. I did my PhD from Temple University. And what I find that in Asia, the word dialogue is irrelevant. Here we need to talk about harmony, social harmony, and social engagement of religions. Because the word dialogue came into existence after the Vatican II, and it is a very Western concept. So would you like to make some comment on this, or anybody else on the panel?
I totally agree. I think we have a serious problem with terminology. And I totally agreed with Professor Mansoor earlier when we use glib terms like multiculturalism. And what essentially we are doing is we are begging for kind of legitimacy for the dialogues. We should be spearheading and pioneering. I must say also that I think Islam has a very, 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 very important role to play in this engagement because the field of comparative religion, as we understand it in a formal sense, began in Islamic courts. Yeah, and it is within the Islamic tradition that they created a formal structure for this to happen. And I am in so many dialogues in which Andalus is always mentioned. You know, the great Mediterranean experience. Somehow nobody wants to talk about India being also a very important Akbar.
Yes.
As being one of those very important spaces upon which interreligious dialogue interreligious engagement was held, and in fact debate and strict theology. Yeah, remember that Maimonides created his philosophical thinking from Andalus. He was strict theological and philosophical thinking. But I'm amazed at how all these references remain references, and they are not emulated today. Where we are so protective of all our spaces, yeah, and we don't want to offend anybody and anybody's sensitivities. That didn't used to be the case. Of course, it did seem that dialogue, that engagement in those days was a lot more sophisticated and supreme in its use of language. Today, we tend to be very abusive all the time. But again, I agree with Brother Shah. I mean, I'm full of admiration for what he does. Because of its openness and its his ability to live that example. So it has to be emulated. It's not like it hasn't before. And so I say that I place a great deal of responsibility on Islam and Muslims to basically create this kind of engagement. One, because Islam sees itself not as an isolated faith, but as a faith that comes within a particular Abrahamic tradition, which means it claims already a certain kind of lineage. And of course, when it was in power in many parts of the world, it was the source that brought about, this room essentially for engagement and the harmony that you speak of, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Adin and Prof. Imtiaz. Yeah, any other panel who would like to respond? I see Brother Shah who is turned on his mic.
No, it's okay. I agree with the discussion just now, and I appreciate the discussion by Brother Edin Koo. There's a lot of things when we represent religion, for example, but we normally do not walk the talk. And when we speak about religion, it's very theoretical. For example, as in Islam, we call it as adin. Adin means religion, I agree, but adin also means way of life. Adin can also mean the system of life. So we should be applying Islam, for example, as a Muslim, as a holy and engage people. And among the things we learn in Islam also, we have relationship between us and God, and also relationship between us and fellow human being. Hablu min Allah, hablu minan nas. But unfortunately, sometimes we tend to be very religious, but we do not take care of our relationship with fellow creation, not only just human being, but also the world around us. The balance should be there. And the more we learn about our religion, I'm not saying only for Islam, the more we learn about our religion, sincerity is important. And this will bring in humbleness, because realization will come to us that we are nothing. There's a lot of weakness in me. Being invited today for this forum, I don't see myself the best qualified person. But I hope certain experience that I have, that we can share and will benefit people. That's all. But there's a lot of weakness. There's a lot more I need to do. Do not judge other people. If you really have to judge, judge the person in the mirror. You will find a lot to judge actually. But how can we coexist, respect one another, help one another? That's all. Thank you very much.
Sorry, Akmal, if I may just ask question.
Thank you.
Response, comment. Okay. Assalamualaikum. Good afternoon. Pertaining to, Edin, thank you very much for accepting our invitation, and also the other speakers. As part of the organizers, I think we're supposed to have it in dual languages. So it can be in Bahasa or it can be in English. But of course, because of the, most of the speakers, I think perhaps they are, choose to speak in English rather than having dual things. So I think we will certainly take your comments, perhaps with the states, YB, Dr. Maria, for the following events. Seriously, because it has to go to what will be our target. So today's target is to whom. So perhaps the other events will be to whom. I think that would be beneficial. I have one question pertaining to the discussion is today. Prof. Mansur mentions there are up and down, and if we were to look into the other countries' experience, we are not bad. Actually, we are not bad. So the red color, the red gates that Prof. Mansur shared. So we only had once. That is 1969. The rest too is not really bad in comparison with Sri Lanka and other countries, for example. So on that basis of this 1969, we have this Rukun Negara. In fact, our federal constitutions takes place in 1957, and also proclamation of Malaysia in 1963. All take into consideration of these multi-regions, multi-ethnics, especially when formation of Malaysia was made, where we have Sabah and Sarawak that form part of Malaysia. Yet, of course, there are a few hiccups here and there. And you mentioned, for example, Eddie, you mentioned that dialogue has been taking place for 50 years. So I recall back to YB Dr. Maria in her welcoming remarks when she refers to this verse of 13 of Surah Al-Hujurat. The word is lita'arafu, is to know each other. So we have been living in this country for ages. Does we know each other well? And that would be something that we are now developing, whether it is through dialogue or it's through engagement whatsoever. I think all the speakers have mentioned their formulas, their instruments, and I think we need that, instruments and points that can transfer into actions. And we hope that we can help the state of Selangor, especially under YB Dr. Maria in this matter, especially in Selangor. I think the ethnic range are very, very big in that sense. We have Muslim, non-Muslims, the populations in that sense. So that would be something I would like to raise. Thank you very much.
Yes, Mr. Edin, over to you.
No, I just agree with everyone. And my name is Edin, yeah, not Edwin. Edin, as in like rooted in the word Adin. My father's great experiment with peaceful coexistence in my family. But yes, I think I think that we need to be a lot more proactive. But I also think the level of the debate needs to be raised sometimes. Of course, in different places you require different things, but I think we need to have a certain kind of openness. There are things that are being brought up on a daily basis by very, very backward, again, mereka yang memimpin kita lah, of communal prayers and not having communal prayers with each other and all these various irritations. This, I think, is very dangerous for a society because as Dr. Goebel says, if you say something long enough, people will start to believe it. And I think there must be enough ruang untuk kita membalas lah. Brother Shah, again, I know the program that he does on TV Al Hijrah, and Brother Ravi is somebody also I really like his dialogue and his engagement. So that there must be various complementary ways, I think, that we begin to really root this. And the Malay word I used was menyuburi, menyuburi budaya ini di dalam masyarakat kita. As I said, in many places when we talk of harmony, we have these harmony places everywhere. If you go to Kelantan, you see it. It's upper north part of Kelantan, mosques and Buddhist wats and monasteries and things. We need to use those resources to remind our society that, as Professor Imtiaz said, we shouldn't be mimicking the West because their encounter with multiculturalism after hundreds of years of white European hegemony is a very recent one. Whereas we have a very far deeper nurtured immersion encounter of cultures and religions in our society, and we should be leading. Instead, we are always mimicking what the West is doing. So I think changes in attitude and a real clear structure about how these things can be approached and how to use the resources that we have in history needs to be part of our interreligious engagement.
Good, thank you, Edin.
Can I have one comment?
Please, Prof.
Yeah, I'm responding to what Kirit Shah said here. And this is what I went through. The problem is that we tend to lose the balance between religion and politics. We do politics thinking it is religion and do religion thinking it is politics. And this is called as mizan in the Quran, the balance. And when we are always in a state of imbalance, that's why we are having these problems of interreligious conflicts and misunderstandings, or what Edward Said would call as clash of ignorance. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, just respond a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. Prof. Imtiaz, we have actually met many years ago in a program in Singapore.
Oh, okay.
And you presented very well.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's an honor to have you here today. And speaking about politics and so on, I agree with you. And normally during my talk, because I'm also invited sometimes by the political parties, etc. So I tell them Islam is holistic, yes. So part of Islam is also politics inside Islam, no problem. I have no issues with politics. The principles in Islam should be guiding the politics and not the other way around. Do not manipulate religion for your political gain. That is one. And also, Edwin, I like the word you use, menyuburi. But you have to be very careful when you pronounce it.
I pronounced it right.
You did well. You did well. Okay. But menyuburi is really important. Okay. Now kita perlukan satu. I'll speak in Malay. Okay. kita perlukan satu kematangan di kalangan masyarakat kita untuk bercakap, berdialog, berbincang secara lebih terbuka. Selama ni kita kata agama ni sensitif. Saya setuju agama sangat sensitif. Saya setuju agama sangat pribadi, very personal. I agree with that. But until when are we going to use this as an excuse not to talk about religion? 30, 40 years ago, speaking about politics was also very sensitive. There were two things you never talk, politics and religion. But today, any Tom, Dick, and Harry has become an expert in politics. Everybody is talking about politics. Okay, I'm not saying any Tom, Dick, and Harry just simply talk about religion, but let's have openness. Let's talk to one another. Okay, if you think the other person is wrong, tell him you are wrong. And if the other person think you've misunderstood, let the other person explain, clarify things. And even if you don't allow dialogues and so on, today in social media, dialogues are happening. But how to control this? How to control this? When you put religious value as your principle, it doesn't matter which religion you come from. Okay, take the good values, guide you, and we will have a more harmonious coexistence. And very quickly, for example, from the Quran side, in Surah Hujurat chapter 49, verse number 6, when anybody bring news to you, verify the news first, lest you may impose injustice to people and later you regret it. And then in the same surah, Hujurat, verse number 9, when two believers are fighting, make peace between them, not pour petrol. Petrol pun mahal kan sekarang. Okay, make peace between them. And then in the verse number 11, it says, okay, do not do name calling. Jangan panggil dengan gelaran-gelaran yang buruk. But unfortunately, I find among many Muslims in the comment area, kita panggil gelaran-gelaran buruk tu macam tak ada apa-apa. Come on, we are Muslims, supposed to practice Islam. And the same applies for other adherents as well. And I would just like to say one more ayat here. Surah Hujurat chapter number 49, verse number 12. Okay, wahai orang-orang yang beriman, sebahagian daripada prasangka boleh membawa pada dosa. Jangan mencari-cari kesalahan orang lain dan jangan mengumpat. Adakah kamu mahu makan daging mayat saudara kamu sendiri? Do not have prejudice, presumption on other people. Do not have suspicious mind on other people. Do not find the fault of other people. And do not backbite. Now, how many of us can say we actually practice this? Siapa dalam setahun ini langsung tak mengumpat? Dalam satu bulan langsung tak mengumpat. Dalam seminggu langsung tak mengumpat. Ataupun hari ini langsung tak mengumpat. Ke tak sempat? How we apply? And do not judge other people. Do not have the attitude holier than thou. The most honored in the sight of God is the one with taqwa, with piety, piousness, righteousness. And what is my level of taqwa? I do not know. When I do not know my level of taqwa, how can I know other people's level of taqwa? So don't judge people. Help one another. Let's live in this world the best that we can and harmoniously. Itu je lah, Edwin. Thank you very much for your sharing. Also, Prof. Imtiaz, thank you very much.
Thank you everyone for the sharing. Actually, we have one final question before I pass the microphone back to the MC. There's a question from Lo Yu Fong. Because we do not have any on behalf, I could ask maybe Dr. Maria to maybe share perhaps any initiative or policies that the Office of the Unity Exco would like to practice in the state of Selangor to promote religious harmony.
Assalamualaikum. Can you repeat the question? Because just now I got sound problem, so your voice broke. Yeah.
Oh,
dengar Dr. Siti Maria aja ke ujung.
Yeah, I think problem is my internet. There's a question, are there any particular policies done by the Ministry of National Unity? But I think in the case of Selangor, perhaps you're in the best position to answer.
Okay. I'm wondering whether Tuan Burhanuddin is here, pengarah Japanese. Ada tak Tuan Burhanuddin? Because I'm not very well versed yet with the policy Kementerian Perpaduan dan Integrasi. InsyaAllah, Selangor will be coming up with the Dasar Perpaduan Negeri Selangor, which is headed by Prof. Mansor. And memang menjadi orang kata tujuan kami. Ya, di antaranya adalah untuk kita memperluaskan perbincangan mengenai harmoni ini, keharmonian agama ini. Ya, kerana dia menjadi salah satu daripada perkara yang selalu memecahkan di antara kita, yang membahagikan kita ini. Tadi saya tidak nak komen, tapi saya rasa saya punya perasaan ataupun feeling juga adalah ini mungkin adalah bila di tahap convention ini memang elite lah academicians yang terlibat, ya. Tapi apabila kita ke tahap ke bawah nanti kepada rakyat jelata yang biasa, kita akan melibatkan juga academician yang kita harap lepas ini menggunakan terminologi yang mudah difahami oleh orang kata dekat di bawah ini. Dan memang saya setuju sangat dengan saudara Edinku yang kita tidak boleh menghadkan kita punya dialog ini di perangkat elit. It becomes an elitist dialogue. But today hari ini adalah satu satu peluang untuk kita mendengar idea-idea daripada academician, daripada para akademik dan para cendekiawan. Kami akan cuba menterjemahkan apa yang disampaikan hari ini kepada program. Itu penting. Sometimes kita ada so many things but kita tak boleh nak terjemah kepada program. Ini yang penting. Saya selalu bercakap misalnya bila kita bercakap tentang Islam ada banyak perkara, dalam Quran tu banyak perkara, tapi tidak ada orang ataupun tidak ramai cendekiawan Islam yang boleh buat ni kepada satu modul untuk dipraktikkan di peringkat bawah. Serupa juga dengan perkara-perkara ini, apakah yang boleh kita bawa ke bawah yang agak mendalam ni? Mungkin program-program Kementerian Perpaduan dan Integrasi, saya melihat dia lebih kepada tolerance, ya. Dia lebih pada tolerance dan tidak membangkitkan keperluan untuk kita memahami jiran kita, agama lain, masyarakat kita, tetapi is to tolerate. That is the word tadi saya setuju. Tolerate adalah apabila you don't like that thing, tak suka, tapi kita telan jugalah, ya, kerana kalau tidak kita tak boleh hidup dengan aman. So kami harap Selangor akan dapat menterjemahkan lebih dalam dan insya-Allah kita buat di dalam kita ada retreat nanti untuk bincang dengan pakar-pakar dan sebagainya. Dan saya memang mengalu-alukan cadangan-cadangan daripada cendekiawan dan para akademik bagaimana Selangor patut move forward dalam isu ini dalam bentuk program. Kita tidak boleh banyak berpolemik dan berdialog sahaja, tapi mesti diterjemah program. Kita punya peruntukan kita hanya boleh digunakan untuk program-program, ya. Jadi ini penting sangat. Jadi setakat itu saja saya rasa lanjutan daripada komen saya terhadap sama ada kita nak buat kefahaman agama ini, memang itulah menjadi insya-Allah di antara tujuan kita di Selangor ini.
Terima kasih YB. Ya mungkin Prof Imtiaz ada sedikit tambahan.
Yeah, just one last comment. When we are talking about elitist dialogue, I have coined the term called goody-goody dialogue. You know, you gather the people, some religious leaders together and take a photo opportunity, and we call it inter-religious dialogue. But as everyone says, it doesn't seep down to the ground, grassroots levels. Thank you. Just wanted to make a light comment on that goody-goody dialogue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, bro. I guess we are reaching the end of our session on the second forum. Talking about the religious, to resolve religious societal issues in Selangor. So therefore, I would like to thank all panelists, all discussants for your insights, for your knowledge that you impart to the audience today, as well as to the audience on Facebook as well as Zoom who participated into this discussion. So I would like to return the microphone to the MC, Mr. Sayuti. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Akmal and fellow panelists and discussant for our discussion too. With that, we have come toward the end of our convention today. So next, to conclude our discussion today, we will proceed with the proclamation of the resolution for today's convention. With that, I would like to invite Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad Azam Muhammad Adil to announce and to read the resolution for our convention. Please welcome Dr. Azam.
Okay, terima kasih. Thank you very much, Brother Sayuti. So I would like to read the resolutions. It will be in dual language. Yang pertama, perlu wujudnya acara tahunan negeri yang boleh menjadi saluran untuk rakyat Selangor meraihkan kepelbagaian etnik dan agama mereka dan mengambil bahagian dalam perbincangan mengenai isu-isu yang berkaitan dengan kewujudan bersama secara aman. Konvensyen dialog antara agama Selangor sebagai contohnya boleh menjadi sebahagian daripada acara tahunan ini. There should be annual state events that can serve as avenue for Selangor citizens to celebrate their ethnic and religious diversities and participate in genuine discussion on issues related to peaceful coexistence. The Selangor Interreligious Dialogue Convention may be a part of this annual event. 2. Terdapat keperluan untuk menganjurkan dialog antara agama di peringkat komuniti melalui platform yang sesuai dengan garis panduan dan modul yang tersusun. Ini seperti mana yang YB Dr. Maria sebut tadi, kita terpaksa turun ke bawah dan apakah program dan mesti ada modul yang tersusun. Wacana antara agama ini penting dalam memberi peluang kepada pemimpin agama di semua peringkat masyarakat untuk berkongsi pemikiran dan aspirasi mereka serta menyumbang kepada penyediaan idea dan penyelesaian dasar. There is a need to have proper platform, guidelines and modules in organizing interreligious dialogues at the community level. These interreligious discourses are essential in providing religious leaders at different levels of society the opportunity to share their thoughts and aspirations as well as contribute to policy solutions. 3. Perlu wujudnya saluran dan tata cara pengendalian operasi SOP yang betul setiap kali munculnya isu yang melibatkan sensitiviti agama dan kaum di peringkat negeri. Penubuhan MPs adalah inisiatif yang sangat baik yang memerlukan prosedur yang betul untuk menyelesaikan isu-isu berasaskan agama. There should be proper channels and standard operating procedures SOP at the state level whenever there is an issue that involves religious and racial sensitivities. The establishment of MPs is a commendable initiative and one that would necessitate proper procedures in resolving religious-based issues. 4. Generasi muda juga perlu mendapat pendedahan tentang budaya dialog antara agama dan antara kaum. Sebenarnya ada perbincangan dalam discussion tadi bagaimana kita perlu kepada pendidikan dan bermula daripada sekolah ataupun generasi muda. Kerajaan negeri mungkin boleh menganjurkan satu platform interaksi antara kaum dan agama di kalangan belia dan remaja untuk memupuk persefahaman yang lebih baik di kalangan mereka. Ini mungkin dalam bentuk kem cuci sekolah ataupun lain-lain aktiviti. Penglibatan sekolah, kolej dan universiti adalah amat penting bagi merealisasikan tujuan ini. Younger generations must receive more exposure to the culture of dialogue between religious and ethnic communities. The state government should organize a platform for inter-ethnic and interreligious interactions among the youth and teenagers to foster better understanding among them. This may be in the form of summer camps, in the holiday seasons or any other forms of activities. The involvement of schools, colleges and universities are crucial in this regard. 5. Pengendalian takbir urus haruslah dilaksanakan demi mencapai objektif untuk mengurus kesenjangan sosioekonomi, di mana agenda pembangunan adalah dilengkapi dengan proses pengagihan semula yang berkesan. perlu wujudnya dasar awam yang berasaskan keperluan terutamanya untuk golongan M40 dan B40. Ini seharusnya menjadi asas kepada agenda takbir urus dan pembangunan dalam erti kata bahawa wujudnya kaedah pengurusan pembangunan mikro bagi negeri, sub-komuniti dan isi rumah. State governments must pursue the objectives of managing socio-economic inequality, where development must be accompanied by growth in distribution. There should be need-based public policies, particularly for the M40 and B40. Policies towards this direction, such as deliberate micro-development of the state, sub-community and household, should be the foundation of state governance and developmental planning. 6. Falsafah hidup bersama yang terkandung dalam Perlembagaan Persekutuan. Proklamasi Malaysia dan rukun negara adalah penting untuk memupuk keharmonian etik di Malaysia. Dokumen-dokumen ini harus menjadi panduan yang mengikat dan menyatupadukan masyarakat Malaysia walaupun mempunyai kepelbagaian dari segi etnik, budaya dan agama. The philosophy of coexistence embedded within the Federal Constitution, the Rukun Negara and the Proclamation of Malaysia is essential to cultivate ethnic harmony in Malaysia. These documents should serve as a guide that binds and unites Malaysian society beyond the ethnic, cultural and religious diversity. 7th, last but not least, pelancaran dasar perpaduan negara Selangor dan pelan tindakan 2020-2025 yang bakal dilancarkan haruslah mencerminkan aspirasi, keutamaan dan sensitiviti semua rakyat Selangor tanpa mengira latar belakang mereka. Di samping itu, dasar perpaduan negara mesti ditunjangi oleh semangat saling hormat menghormati dan perundingan antara semua masyarakat etnik dan agama serta menghasilkan natijah yang inklusif dan adil. The upcoming launch of the Selangor State Unity Policy and Action Plan 2020-2025 must reflect the aspirations, priorities, and sensitivities of all Selangorians regardless of their backgrounds. Additionally, state policies on unity must be underpinned by the spirit of mutual respect and consultation between all ethnic and religious communities, producing outcomes that are inclusive and unjust. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad Azam, for the proclamation of the resolution for our today's convention. And next, before we are ending our convention today, I would like to welcome YB Dr. Maria for some final words on behalf of the organizer. Please welcome YB Dr. Maria.
Saudara Sayuti, saya sudah bercakap tadi. Jadi saya ingat tidak perlu lagi saya bercakap. Saya ingin cuma mengucapkan terima kasih kepada semua ucap tamu tadi dan juga kepada panelis-panelis kita. Banyak yang belajar hari ini. Sebenarnya inilah kali pertama saya dapat duduk dalam convention dari pagi sampai ke petang. Ya, sebab saya miss beberapa program-program yang dianjurkan oleh MPs dan juga oleh Stanco saya sendiri disebabkan tugas-tugas lain. Ya. Dan memang saya berminat dalam isu ini tapi saya tak pandai. Ya. Saya suka melihat dalam kehidupan harian kita bagaimana rakyat kita sebenarnya boleh hidup dengan rukun dan mereka kadang-kadang memberi menunjukkan kefahaman yang lebih tinggi kalau kita bandingkan dengan orang politik. Saya orang politik juga. Tadi bila disebut-sebut tadi tentang orang-orang politik ni, mahu saja saya mengajak ahli-ahli panel kita dan cendekiawan yang mahir dalam agama ini untuk menegur dan juga memperingatkan ahli-ahli politik yang menggunakan agama untuk kepentingan politik ini. Tapi seperti biasalah kalau kita sebut jangan kita mainkan isu agama ini, mereka akan jawab, oh dalam Islam tidak ada perbezaan antara politik dan agama. Ya, tetapi digunakan agama ini pada masa-masa tertentu dan memang kita tidak selesa. Ya, kerana kita juga Muslim. Dan saudara Syakir tadi telah menyebut tentang bagaimana labeling ya dilakukan dengan seluas-luasnya menuduh orang lain munafik, tuduh orang lain tidak macam-macam lah kalau kita dengar, memang menyakit dan menyayatkan hati kita. Namun kita tahu bahawa warning ni Allah SWT dah beri dalam Al-Quran, kita sabar je lah, ya, kita buat je kerja kita itu, ya. Jadi dialog itu makna dia kalau nak berdebat dan berdialog at level teknik adalah mereka-mereka yang ahli agama, yang menceburi di dalam politik, yang mudah bercakap tentang pelaksanaan Islam tetapi tidak walk the talk, ya. Ini masalah mereka, inilah yang sebenarnya menyebabkan rakyat kita berbincang dengan isu-isu yang sebenarnya tidak ada kait mengait pun dalam kehidupan kita. Dan saya harap kita doa pada Allah memberi kekuatan kepada kami dalam Selangor ini untuk meneruskan perancangan dan perbincangan yang agak panjang daripada awal tahun akhir tahun lepas, ya, dengan Profesor Mansur dan juga RDP dan sebagaimana dan seterusnya, mereka-mereka yang telah kami engage, ya, untuk memberi satu rangka dan bentuk bagaimana Selangor nak mengemudi orang kata portfolio perpaduan dan integrasi ini. Kita tahu bahawa Kementerian Perpaduan dan juga Integrasi telah ada dia punya dasar-dasar dan pelan tindakannya, tetapi saya sendiri merasakan dia agak superficial, lebih kepada keramaian dan tidak mendasari, tidak mau tackle isu yang sebenarnya membahagikan kita, ya, yang menyebabkan kita ini. Itu sebab tadi apa yang Dr. Prof. Mansur bentangkan tadi itu, saya memang share dengan dia, dan saya sendiri telah menzahirkan beberapa perkara tentang governance, ya, yang kita perlu lihat bersama-sama. Kami sudah mula di Selangor untuk buat gender mainstreaming untuk semua, untuk penjawat awam memahami tentang perbezaan gender ini dan bagaimana kita boleh merapatkan kesenjangan di antara gender. Dan kita harap dengan adanya besok pelan tindakan kita, bagaimana kita boleh memberi satu pandangan baru kepada perancang-perancang, pemegang-pemegang jawatan-jawatan tinggi kerajaan negeri apabila mereka membuat polisi dan apabila mereka membuat perancangan dan sebagainya untuk memikir tentang kepelbagaian yang kita ada. Saya selalu beri contoh ini tentang perancangan yang dibuat, kadang-kadang kita lupa tentang bangsa agama lain yang juga memerlukan rumah ibadat, dan akhirnya rumah-rumah ibadat ini dibina di tepi-tepi jalan, tempat-tempat yang tak sepatutnya, berlaku pencerobohan dan sebagainya. Dan pada masa yang sama kita perlu memahami juga, tadi saudara Utaya Sangkat membawa tentang kefahaman tentang agama Hindu itu sendiri. Saya banyak kali telah diberi diberi peringatan, ya, doktor tolong ingatkan sedikit orang-orang agama Hindu dan sebagainya, jangan main buat saja tempat ibadat mereka, buka tempat sembahyang mereka dan sebagainya. Di perkara-perkara ini tak ada siapa cakap, dan saya mahu bawanya ke depan supaya kita engage dengan misalnya Hindu Sanggam dan sebagainya, bagaimana mereka boleh membantu kerajaan untuk mendidik penganut masing-masing. Perlu dididik orang Islam, perlu mendidik orang beragama Islam, dan NGO dan juga pemimpin agama lain juga perlu mendidik penganut-penganut agama mereka, kerana every time bila berlaku sesuatu perkara dalam masyarakat, misalnya bila pihak PBT hendak merobohkan kuil, ya, dan sebagainya, akan menjadi satu polemik di dalam masyarakat kita. Dan saya juga bersetuju apa-apa perbezaan di dalam kefahaman agama ataupun kita nak mengkritik orang daripada agama lain, janganlah dibuat di dalam social media. Setiap kali dimasukkan dalam social media dan ada orang kita tak sensitif, dia akan menjadi satu polemik. Dan juga kepada tadi saudara Syakirik juga sebut, dan saudara Ang, kalau tak silap saya tadi, daripada Buddhism, Buddhis tu ada menyebut, ini saya ingat kena juga ingatkan setengah penceramah Islam kita, terutamanya bagi mereka yang telah convert daripada agama lain masuk Islam. Ya, dan kita tengok di dalam YouTube pun banyak. Bukan dia sahaja setakat menceritakan tentang agama Islam, kenapa dia masuk agama Islam, tapi memang mengguris hati penganut agama lain apabila dia mengkritik agama lamanya. Dengan itu kita boleh faham kenapa dalam Islam murtad itu, kalau you murtad senyap-senyap, you pergi duduk diam-diam, you amal agama you yang baru, nobody will say anything. Tetapi kalau you murtad, kemudian you start criticizing Islam balik, ini yang dalam Islam itu setengah ulama kata ini kena hukum bunuh. Jadi itu yang di antara perkara yang kita kena faham. Kita tak nak orang buat begitu kepada agama kita, kita tak boleh buat perkara yang sama pada agama lain. Jadi ini adalah perkara yang agak sensitif, but I intend to bawanya supaya kita boleh bincang, supaya kita dapat mencari jalan penyelesaiannya. Bagaimana? Dan saya setuju mungkin kita ada guideline, kita perlu ada garis-garis panduan ya kepada mereka-mereka yang telah convert ya religion dan sebagainya, supaya tidak dijadikan ia sebagai satu modal untuk mendapat sokongan dan populariti. Jadi terima kasih banyak-banyak kepada penganjur IAIS dan juga IRDP ya and MPs ya dalam penganjuran konvensi ini. I learn a lot from you all. Terima kasih. Doakan saya dan tim dapat menterjemah apa yang tuan-tuan berikan hari ini kepada program-program yang perlu kami laksanakan. Wabillahi taufik. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much to YB Dr. Siti Maria for the concluding remark. With that, we have come to the end of our convention today. Therefore, on behalf of the organizers for today's convention, I would like to extend warmly gratitude to all of our respected speakers, panelists, and as well as participants, both in our Zoom meeting as well as on our live streaming. And also, I would like to apologize for any shortcoming during our convention today. Inshallah, we will meet in our next event soon. Have a good day and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.